The real story of Cleopatra VII Philopator is more strategic and more human. Cleopatra became ruler of Egypt at a time of crisis. Rome was expanding and her throne was unstable. She was highly educated, spoke several languages, and understood politics and diplomacy. Her alliances with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony were not simply romantic stories, they were calculated moves to protect Egypt's independence against the rise of Augustus. In the end, she lost to Rome, but her story is not just about defeat, it is about leadership under pressure, ambition in a changing world, and the cost of holding power. When history remembers a ruler, does it remember their strategy or the story others chose to tell about them? This lineage, founded by Ptolemy Sota, one of Alexander's most trusted generals, endured for nearly 3 centuries, transforming Egypt into a dominant power in the eastern Mediterranean. In the 1st century BCE, when Cleopatra's story unfolds, ancient Egypt was a land of immense agricultural wealth, primarily from the fertile Nile Delta, which sustained a vast population and fueled a sophisticated economy. However, politically, it stood as a declining power, increasingly caught in the intricate web of Roman expansion and influence. The geopolitical landscape was dominated by the rising might of Rome, which was steadily absorbing territories and establishing its hegemony across the Mediterranean world, leaving the Ptolemaic kingdom in a precarious position, often forced to navigate complex alliances and rivalries with the burgeoning superpower. At the heart of this world lay Alexandria, a city founded by Alexander himself and envisioned as a beacon of Hellenistic civilization. It was a sprawling metropolis, a vibrant cultural and economic hub that dwarfed many other ancient cities, boasting a diverse population of Greeks, Egyptians, Jews, and countless other nationalities. Its harbour teemed with ships laden with goods from across the known world, making it a pivotal centre for trade and commerce. Beyond its economic prowess, Alexandria was renowned for its intellectual achievements, epitomized by the legendary Library of Alexandria and the Maugean, institutions that attracted scholars and thinkers from every corner of the ancient world. These centers of learning fostered advancements in science, philosophy, and literature, cementing Alexandria's reputation as the intellectual capital of its age. Our understanding of Cleopatra's life, despite her iconic status, is primarily derived from a mosaic of ancient sources, often colored by the political agendas of their authors. Roman historians like Plutarch, Cassius Dio, and Appian provide the most extensive narratives, though their accounts are largely filtered through a Roman lens, frequently portraying Cleopatra as a seductive foreign queen who threatened Roman stability. Egyptian records, while sparse, offer glimpses into her reign from a native perspective, particularly through inscriptions and papyri. Archaeological discoveries continue to enrich this understanding, revealing tangible evidence of her era and the world she inhabited. These disparate fragments, when pieced together, allow us to reconstruct the contours of her extraordinary life, from her birth into the opulent yet turbulent royal court, through her formative years within the palaces of Alexandria, to her eventual ascent to the throne. Cleopatra's birth into the Ptolemaic dynasty, sometime around 69 BCE, placed her at the very epicenter of power and privilege, yet also amidst a maelstrom of dynastic instability and external pressures. Her early childhood unfolded within the gilded cages of the Alexandrian palace, a world of intricate rituals, strict protocols, and constant vigilance, where the whispers of political intrigue were as ubiquitous as the salty breeze from the Mediterranean. This was the environment that shaped her, preparing her, perhaps unknowingly, for the formidable challenges she would eventually face as the last pharaoh of Egypt. This act marked the establishment of a Hellenistic kingdom that would endure for nearly 3 centuries, profoundly shaping the history of the Eastern Mediterranean. The early Ptolemaic rulers, such as Ptolemy Des and his successor Ptolemy II Philadelphus, were ambitious and effective monarchs, overseeing a period of remarkable prosperity and expansion. They transformed Egypt into a formidable naval power, controlled vast territories across the Aegean and Levant, and established Alexandria as a preeminent center of culture and learning. Their achievements included the construction of the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the founding of the Great Library, which became an unparalleled repository of knowledge. However, Alongside these triumphs, the dynasty was also characterized by endemic internal conflicts and power struggles, often exacerbated by the Ptolemaic tradition of sibling marriage, a practice adopted from ancient Egyptian pharaonic customs to maintain the purity of the royal bloodline. While intended to consolidate power, this practice frequently led to bitter rivalries and violent purges within the royal family, with siblings, spouses, and children often vying for control, sometimes resorting to assassination to secure the throne. This pattern of dynastic instability would become a defining feature of the later Ptolemaic period. Culturally, the Ptolemies fostered a unique synthesis of Greek and Egyptian traditions. While maintaining their distinct Greek identity and language, they cleverly adopted Egyptian religious practices and presented themselves as pharaohs, participating in ancient rituals and commissioning temples in the traditional Egyptian style. This cultural integration allowed them to legitimize their rule in the eyes of the native Egyptian population, while simultaneously promoting Hellenistic culture. Scientific achievements flourished under their patronage, particularly in Alexandria, where scholars like Euclid advanced mathematics and Eratosthenes calculated the Earth's circumference. Yet, by the time Cleopatra's era approached, the once mighty Ptolemaic kingdom was in a state of significant decline. Decades of internal strife, coupled with costly foreign wars, had depleted its resources and eroded its power. The vast territorial holdings of earlier centuries had shrunk considerably, and Egypt's political independence was increasingly threatened by the burgeoning power of Rome. Roman influence, initially subtle, had grown relentlessly, transforming Egypt from an independent kingdom into a client state, its rulers often compelled to seek Roman intervention to resolve internal disputes or secure their thrones. This gradual erosion of sovereignty set the precarious stage for Cleopatra's reign, a period defined by a desperate struggle to preserve the last vestiges of Ptolemaic independence against the inexorable tide of Roman dominance. The royal residence itself was not merely a home but a miniature city, a nexus of power, luxury, and learning. From her earliest years, she was immersed in an environment where the pursuit of knowledge was highly valued, a legacy of the dynasty's founders who had championed the intellectual endeavors of Alexandria. Her formal education was remarkably extensive, distinguishing her sharply from many of her Ptolemaic predecessors, and indeed from most women of her time. She was not only fluent in Greek, the language of the Ptolemaic court and the administrative lingua franca of the Hellenistic world, but famously mastered at least 9 languages, including Egyptian, Aramaic, Hebrew, Ethiopian, and Latin. This linguistic prowess was not a mere parlor trick, it was a crucial strategic asset, enabling her to communicate directly with foreign envoys and her diverse subjects, bypassing interpreters and fostering stronger diplomatic ties. Her studies also encompassed a wide array of subjects, including mathematics, philosophy, rhetoric, and astronomy, all taught by the finest scholars available in Alexandria. Beyond the academic curriculum, Cleopatra was exposed from a very young age to the intricate and often brutal realities of Ptolemaic politics. The Alexandrian court was a hotbed of intrigue, where alliances shifted constantly, and power was often secured through treachery and violence. She witnessed firsthand the machinations of courtiers, the rivalries between factions, and the pervasive influence of Roman envoys. This early exposure to the cutthroat world of power politics undoubtedly honed her observational skills and instilled in her a keen understanding of human nature and strategic maneuvering. The blend of Greek and Egyptian cultures profoundly influenced her development. While she was educated in the Hellenistic tradition and spoke Greek as her primary language, she also embraced Egyptian customs and religion, a strategic move that set her apart from many of her ancestors who had often remained aloof from their Egyptian subjects. This dual cultural identity allowed her to connect with both the Greek elite and the native Egyptian populace, a crucial element of her later appeal and legitimacy. Her relationships within the royal family were complex and often fraught with tension. She was one of several children of Ptolemy XII Euletes, a ruler whose reign was characterized by instability and a precarious dependence on Roman support. Her older sisters, Tryphena and Berenice IV, both briefly usurped their father's throne, providing a stark demonstration of the cutthroat nature of dynastic succession. These events, witnessed during her formative years, would have underscored the fragility of power and the constant threat posed by rivals, even those within one's own family. Her relationships with her younger brothers, Ptolemy XIII and Ptolemy XIV, with whom she would eventually share the throne, were similarly shaped by the dictates of power and the ever-present shadow of dynastic conflict, laying the groundwork for the brutal struggles that would define her early reign. Its architectural marvels were legendary, designed to impress and to function as the nerve center of a vast kingdom. The city was laid out on a grid plan, a hallmark of Greek urban planning, with broad avenues and monumental public buildings. Dominating the harbor was the Pharos, the lighthouse of Alexandria, a colossal structure towering hundreds of feet into the sky, its beacon guiding ships from distant lands. The royal quarter, known as the Bruchion, was a sprawling complex of palaces, gardens, and administrative buildings, reflecting the immense wealth and power of the Ptolemaic dynasty. The Sema, or royal tomb, housed the remains of Alexander the Great himself, a sacred site that underscored the city's unique historical significance. At the heart of Alexandria's intellectual life was the Great Library and its associated institution, the Maution. These were not simply repositories of scrolls, but vibrant centers of scholarship, where the greatest minds of the ancient world gathered to research, debate, and teach. The library housed an unparalleled collection of texts, estimated to contain hundreds of thousands of scrolls, covering every conceivable field of knowledge, from philosophy and literature to science and medicine. Scholars, like Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes, conducted their groundbreaking work within its hallowed halls, fostering an environment of intellectual ferment that resonated throughout the city. This intellectual vibrancy attracted a diverse array of thinkers, poets, and artists, creating a truly cosmopolitan atmosphere where ideas flowed freely. Economically, Alexandria was a powerhouse, positioned strategically at the crossroads of three continents. Its massive harbor served as the primary port for the export of Egypt's abundant grain, which fed much of the Roman world, and for the import of luxury goods, raw materials, and manufactured products from across the Mediterranean and beyond. Trade networks extended eastward to India and Africa, bringing exotic spices, silks, and precious metals into the city's bustling markets. This immense commerce generated enormous wealth for the Ptolemaic crown and supported a thriving merchant class, making Alexandria one of the wealthiest cities of its time. The city's society was a rich tapestry of cultures, a melting pot where Greeks, Egyptians, Jews, and numerous other ethnic groups coexisted, sometimes harmoniously, sometimes with underlying tensions. While the ruling class was predominantly Greek, the vast majority of the population was Egyptian, and a significant Jewish community also flourished. This multiculturalism was reflected in the city's religious practices, where Greek and Egyptian deities were worshipped side by side, and new syncretic cults, such as that of Serapis, emerged. Religious festivals and processions were frequent occurrences, adding to the city's vibrant and often boisterous daily life. Within the royal palace, daily life for Cleopatra and her family would have been a world apart from the bustling streets outside. It was a realm of immense luxury and strict protocol, where every aspect of existence was meticulously managed by a vast retinue of servants, tutors, and courtiers. Grand banquets, elaborate ceremonies, and diplomatic receptions were common, showcasing the dynasty's power and wealth. Yet, beneath the veneer of splendor, the palace was also a place of constant vigilance, where the whispers of political intrigue and the ever-present threat of assassination lurked beneath the surface, shaping the perceptions and preparing the young princess for the perilous path ahead. The once dominant Ptolemaic kingdom, which had for centuries controlled vast territories and exerted significant influence across the eastern Mediterranean, had by the 1st century BCE seen its power steadily wane. Decades of internecine dynastic struggles, characterized by assassinations, usurpations, and fratricidal conflicts, had severely weakened the central authority of the throne and drained the kingdom's financial resources. The ruling pharaohs, including Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII Auletes, often found themselves reliant on foreign powers, particularly Rome, to maintain their tenuous grip on power. The overarching geopolitical reality of the era was the relentless expansion of Roman influence throughout the Mediterranean. Rome, having defeated Carthage and absorbed territories in Greece, Asia Minor, and Syria, was now the undisputed hegemonic power, its legions and political machinations extending across the known world. Egypt, with its immense agricultural wealth, especially its abundant grain supply, was an indispensable prize, coveted by Roman politicians and generals alike. While not yet formally a Roman province, Egypt functioned increasingly as a client state, its rulers often needing Roman approval or military intervention to secure their positions. This pervasive Roman presence cast a long shadow over Alexandrian politics, influencing every major decision and limiting the kingdom's autonomy. Within the Ptolemaic court itself, internal conflicts were endemic, a deeply ingrained pattern inherited from generations of dynastic strife. Factions vied for influence, often aligning themselves with various Roman patrons or competing members of the royal family. The court was a viper's nest of ambition and betrayal, where loyalty was a fleeting commodity and plots were constantly being hatched. This internal instability made it incredibly difficult for any single ruler to govern effectively or to project a unified front against external threats. Cleopatra, even in her youth, would have been acutely aware of these dangerous undercurrents, witnessing firsthand the fragility of power and the constant need for vigilance. Egypt's declining international power was starkly evident. It had lost most of its overseas possessions, and its once formidable navy was a shadow of its former self. The kingdom's ability to project power beyond its borders was severely curtailed, leaving it susceptible to the ambitions of its more powerful neighbors and, most significantly, to the dictates of Rome. The Ptolemaic kings, including Cleopatra's father, often resorted to heavy bribery and costly diplomatic maneuvering to appease Roman officials and prevent outright annexation, further depleting the national treasury and fostering resentment among the populace. The growing threats to Ptolemaic rule were manifold. Externally, the shadow of Roman annexation loomed large, a constant existential danger. Internally, the native Egyptian population, often exploited and marginalized by their Greek rulers, harbored resentments that occasionally flared into revolts. The reliance on foreign mercenaries for military protection further alienated the populace and created another layer of instability. Cleopatra's early life was thus spent in a kingdom teetering on the brink, a once proud dynasty grappling with its diminishing power, surrounded by internal dissent and the inexorable advance of Roman might, all of which would profoundly shape her worldview and her future strategies as queen. Olates, a ruler whose reign was characterized by a desperate and costly reliance on Roman patronage, had designated in his will that his eldest surviving daughter, Cleopatra, and his eldest surviving son, Ptolemy XIII, then a boy of about 10, should rule jointly as co-regents. This arrangement, a common Ptolemaic practice, was intended to ensure continuity and prevent the kind of internecine warfare that had plagued the dynasty for generations, though it rarely succeeded. Cleopatra, at around 18 years old, was the senior partner in this dual monarchy, and her name appeared first on official documents, indicating her preeminence. Her initial challenges as a female ruler were immense, magnified by the patriarchal norms of both Greek and Egyptian societies. While previous Ptolemaic queens had held power, often as regents or alongside their male consorts, Cleopatra was expected to rule actively and independently, a role that brought considerable scrutiny and resistance from conservative elements within the court. She had to navigate a political landscape dominated by powerful male advisors, eunuchs, and military commanders who sought to manipulate the young king and undermine her authority. Her youth, combined with her gender, made her vulnerable to these factions, who saw her as an easier target for control than a more established male ruler. Cleopatra's early political strategies were characterized by a shrewd understanding of the need to consolidate power and build a domestic base of support. She quickly began to assert her authority, challenging the established court eunuchs and ministers who had previously dominated her father's reign. One of her most significant early moves was to cultivate support among the native Egyptian priesthood and nobility, a segment of the population often alienated by the Greek-speaking Ptolemaic rulers. Unlike many of her predecessors, Cleopatra made a conscious effort to learn the Egyptian language and embrace traditional Egyptian religious practices, even presenting herself as the living embodiment of the goddess Isis. This strategic embrace of Egyptian identity was a radical departure for a Ptolemaic monarch and proved instrumental in legitimizing her rule in the eyes of the indigenous population, providing her with a crucial reservoir of loyalty. She also understood the vital importance of maintaining a favorable relationship with Rome, the ultimate arbiter of power in the Eastern Mediterranean. While asserting her independence domestically, she carefully dispatched envoys and cultivated contacts with influential Roman figures, recognizing that Egypt's survival depended on a delicate balance between autonomy and accommodation with the burgeoning superpower. These early maneuvers, often conducted amidst intense court intrigue and opposition from her co-regent's advisors, demonstrated a nascent but formidable political acumen, laying the groundwork for the extraordinary reign that was to follow. The young king's advisors, most notably the eunuch Pothinus, the general Achilles, and his former tutor Theodotus of Chios, grew increasingly resentful of Cleopatra's assertive rule and her attempts to marginalize their influence. They sought to consolidate power around the young Pothinus 13, viewing Cleopatra as a threat to their own authority and ambitions. By 49 BCE, the tensions had escalated to the point of open conflict, and these advisors, effectively ruling in Ptolemy XIII's name, managed to orchestrate Cleopatra's ouster from Alexandria. She was stripped of her royal titles and forced to flee Egypt, seeking refuge in the eastern territories, likely in Syria. During her time in exile, Cleopatra did not merely bide her time, she strategically gathered her forces, demonstrating her formidable resolve and leadership capabilities. She established a base of operations in Syria, leveraging her diplomatic skills and the remnants of Ptolemaic influence in the region to recruit mercenary armies and secure alliances. Her objective was clear: to reclaim her throne through military force. This period of exile was crucial for her development as a military and political leader, forcing her to rely on her own ingenuity and determination rather than the established machinery of the Alexandrian court. She meticulously planned her return, understanding that a swift and decisive action would be necessary to overcome her brother's entrenched forces. Cleopatra's strategic planning involved not only assembling an army, but also cultivating military support and forging new alliances. She rallied loyalists, appealed to regional governors who still held allegiance to her, and sought out commanders willing to commit their forces to her cause. Her ability to inspire loyalty and organize a military campaign from exile speaks volumes about her emerging leadership qualities. By the spring of 48 BCE, having amassed a substantial force, she began her march back towards Egypt, positioning her army near Pelusium, on the eastern frontier of the Nile Delta. Her dramatic return to Alexandria was imminent, setting the stage for a direct confrontation with her brother's forces. This move was not just a military maneuver, it was a bold political statement, a clear declaration of her intent to reclaim her rightful place on the throne. As her army approached, the stage was set for a civil war, a conflict that would ultimately draw in the most powerful figure of the Roman world, Julius Caesar, whose arrival in Egypt would dramatically alter the course of Cleopatra's life and the fate of the Ptolemaic kingdom. Her exile, far from being a defeat, proved to be a crucible that forged her into an even more determined and capable ruler, ready to fight for her crown. Having decisively defeated Pompey the Great at the Battle of Pharsalus in Greece, Caesar pursued his rival to Egypt, only to discover upon his arrival that Pompey had already been assassinated by agents of Ptolemy XIII's court, who hoped to curry favor with the victorious Roman general. Caesar, however, was reportedly appalled by this act, seeing it as an affront to Roman dignity and a violation of the sanctity of a Roman citizen, even a defeated foe. His presence in Alexandria, initially intended to settle Roman affairs and collect a debt owed by Egypt to Rome, quickly became entangled in the local succession dispute between Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII. The political situation that brought Caesar to Egypt was thus a complex interplay of Roman power politics and Ptolemaic internal strife. Caesar, a proconsul of immense authority, found himself in a position to arbitrate the Ptolemaic succession, a role that was both an opportunity and a potential quagmire. The young Ptolemy XIII and his chief advisors, Pothinus and Achilles, attempted to present their case to Caesar, hoping he would endorse their rule and dismiss Cleopatra's claims. However, Cleopatra, ever the master strategist, understood that a direct appeal to Caesar was her best, perhaps only, chance to regain her throne. The famous story of their first encounter, often embellished in later accounts, revolves around her daring entry into the royal palace, then controlled by her brother's faction. According to Plutarch, she had herself smuggled into Caesar's presence, reportedly rolled up in a carpet or a sack, a dramatic and audacious act designed to bypass her brother's guards and make a memorable first impression. While the exact details of the carpet story may be apocryphal, its essence, Cleopatra's resourcefulness and determination to meet Caesar directly, is widely accepted as factual. This clandestine meeting allowed her to present her case personally, charming Caesar with her intelligence, linguistic prowess, and compelling arguments, rather than relying on intermediaries. Their initial negotiations were crucial. Cleopatra, fluent in Greek and reportedly charismatic, was able to articulate her claims to the throne with persuasive eloquence, presenting herself as the legitimate ruler and highlighting the treachery of her brother's advisors. Caesar, always pragmatic and perhaps intrigued by her intellect and ambition, recognized the strategic advantage of supporting a strong, intelligent ruler who could stabilize Egypt and ensure its continued loyalty to Rome. The alliance formed between them was initially one of political expediency, a convergence of mutual interests. Cleopatra sought Caesar's military might to reclaim her throne, and Caesar sought to install a compliant ruler who would secure Egypt's grain supply and its strategic position for Rome. This fateful encounter marked the beginning of one of the most consequential political and personal partnerships in ancient history. The outbreak of conflict was largely instigated by Ptolemy XIII's chief general Achillas, who, fearing Caesar's growing influence and his perceived favoritism towards Cleopatra, mobilized the royal army, composed largely of veteran mercenaries and disaffected Roman soldiers, to besiege Caesar within the royal palace district. This sudden escalation trapped Caesar, who had brought only a small contingent of Roman troops to Egypt, in a highly precarious situation. The military strategies employed during the war were characterized by desperate engagements and innovative tactics. Caesar, outnumbered and isolated, fortified his position within the palace and the adjacent harbor, using the naval facilities to his advantage. He famously ordered the burning of the Egyptian fleet in the harbor to prevent it from being used against him, an act that inadvertently led to the partial destruction of the Great Library. Key battles occurred around the city's strategic points, including the Heptastadion, a causeway connecting the island of Pharos to the mainland, and the harbor itself. Caesar's forces, despite being outnumbered, displayed superior training and discipline, gradually gaining ground against the larger but less cohesive Ptolemaic army. Reinforcements from Rome and friendly client states were crucial in turning the tide, arriving after months of intense fighting. Cleopatra's role during the war was significant, though often behind the scenes. She remained with Caesar throughout the siege, providing him with invaluable intelligence about the Alexandrian court, its factions, and the city's layout. Her presence symbolized the legitimacy of Caesar's intervention to many Egyptians and local Greeks who supported her claim. She also played a crucial diplomatic role, helping to rally support and supplies for Caesar's beleaguered forces, leveraging her knowledge of the region and her emerging network of loyalists. Her intimate understanding of the local political and military landscape proved invaluable to Caesar's strategic planning. The war reached its climax in early 47 BCE, culminating in a decisive Roman victory at the Battle of the Nile. The Ptolemy III, attempting to flee after his forces were routed, reportedly drowned in the river, his golden cuirass dragging him beneath the waves. His death effectively ended the primary opposition to Caesar and Cleopatra's rule. The aftermath of the Alexandrian War saw the establishment of a new power structure in Egypt. Caesar, having successfully quelled the rebellion, formally confirmed Cleopatra as the reigning monarch. However, to maintain a semblance of Ptolemaic dynastic rule, and to avoid directly annexing Egypt, which might have provoked political instability in Rome, he appointed Cleopatra's younger brother Ptolemy XIV as her co-ruler. This arrangement was largely a formality, as Cleopatra was now firmly in control, backed by Roman legions. Caesar also left 3 Roman legions in Egypt, ostensibly to ensure stability and protect the new regime, but effectively cementing Roman influence and ensuring Egypt's continued status as a client state. This outcome, while securing Cleopatra's throne, also inextricably linked her fate and the fate of Egypt to the fortunes of Rome and its most powerful general. Politically, their alliance was a formidable force. Cleopatra gained the unwavering support of the most powerful man in the Roman world, which secured her throne and provided Egypt with a powerful protector against internal dissent and external threats. Caesar, in turn, ensured Rome's access to Egypt's vital grain supply and established a loyal client state in a strategically crucial region, thereby stabilizing the eastern Mediterranean for Roman interests. Joint appearances were carefully orchestrated, particularly after the Alexandrian War, to project an image of a unified and legitimate rule, both within Egypt and to the wider Roman world. Cleopatra's position was bolstered by Caesar's presence, and his endorsement solidified her authority. Their personal relationship blossomed during Caesar's extended stay in Egypt, following the war. Despite Caesar being a married man and significantly older than Cleopatra, a deep bond formed between them. Cleopatra's intelligence, linguistic abilities, and charisma captivated Caesar, just as his military genius and absolute authority impressed her. This personal connection undoubtedly influenced Roman politics. As Caesar's continued support for Cleopatra and Egypt became a point of discussion, and for some, concern in Rome, the most tangible outcome of their union was the birth of their son Caesarion in 47 BCE. Caesarion, whose full name was Ptolemy Caesar, was a living embodiment of their partnership and a symbol of a potential future dynastic link between Rome and Egypt. For Cleopatra, Caesarion represented the future of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a potential heir who could perhaps inherit both Egyptian and Roman power. For Caesar, while he never formally acknowledged Caesar as his heir in Rome, the child was a testament to his virility and his connection to one of the richest kingdoms in the world. The visit to Rome in 46–44 BCE, where Cleopatra resided with Caesar for a significant period, was a pivotal moment. Caesar, now dictator of Rome, brought Cleopatra and their son to the heart of the Roman Republic, housing them in his personal villa across the Tiber. This visit was laden with political significance. While publicly presented as a diplomatic visit from a friendly client queen, it caused considerable consternation among the Roman elite. Caesar openly displayed a golden statue of Cleopatra in the Temple of Venus Genetrix, an unprecedented honor for a foreign ruler and a clear indication of their close relationship. This act, along with the very presence of a foreign queen and her illegitimate son with Caesar in Rome, fueled rumors and anxieties among conservative Romans, who feared Caesar's growing monarchical tendencies and the potential for an orientalized Roman state. For Cleopatra, the visit was an opportunity to engage directly with Roman politics, to network with influential figures, and to solidify her position as an indispensable ally, while also showcasing her son's claim to a formidable heritage. She was housed in Caesar's magnificent villa in the Haughty Caesaris, the Gardens of Caesar, located across the Tiber River from the bustling heart of the city. This location, while grand, offered a degree of separation from the immediate scrutiny of the Roman populace and the conservative Senate, yet was close enough to be a constant, visible reminder of her presence and her unique relationship with the dictator. Her entourage was appropriately lavish, reflecting her status as a reigning monarch, and she brought with her the intellectual and cultural trappings of Alexandria, including scholars and philosophers. Her reception by Roman society was decidedly mixed. While Caesar himself afforded her every honor, treating her as a queen and a close confidant, many in the Roman elite viewed her with suspicion and resentment. Roman conservative circles, deeply ingrained with republican values and a strong sense of cultural superiority, were unnerved by the presence of a powerful foreign queen, particularly one who was openly acknowledged as Caesar's lover and the mother of his son Caesaram. They saw her as an exotic temptress, a symbol of oriental luxury and potential corruption that threatened traditional Roman morality and the very fabric of the Republic. The public display of a golden statue of Cleopatra in the Temple of Venus Genetrix, dedicated by Caesar himself, was perceived by many as an act of hubris and a further indication of Caesar's burgeoning monarchical ambitions, which further fueled animosity towards her. Despite the underlying animosity from some quarters, Cleopatra undoubtedly had a significant cultural impact on Roman life. She introduced elements of Alexandrian fashion, art, and possibly even cuisine to the Roman elite. Her intellectual prowess and command of multiple languages impressed many, and her presence contributed to a broader fascination with Egypt and its ancient mysteries. Scholars in her retinue engaged with Roman intellectuals, fostering a cross-cultural exchange of ideas though the long-term impact of this cultural infusion was curtailed by later political events. During her time in Rome, Cleopatra was not merely a passive guest. She was actively engaged in political activities and networking. She met with influential Roman senators, equites, and other powerful figures, leveraging her charisma and intelligence to cultivate alliances and gather intelligence. Her objective was to solidify her position as a crucial ally of Rome and to ensure the continued security and prosperity of Egypt under her rule. She understood that her personal relationship with Caesar was her strongest asset, but also that Rome's complex political landscape required broader engagement. Her relationship with the Roman elite was a delicate balancing act. While some prominent figures, like Cicero, expressed disdain for her, others were undoubtedly intrigued or sought to curry favor with Caesar by associating with his powerful consort. She navigated this complex social and political environment with considerable skill, demonstrating her diplomatic acumen amidst the opulent villas and treacherous corridors of Roman power. Her time in Rome, though ultimately cut short by Caesar's assassination, provided her with invaluable insights into the workings of the Roman state and its powerful figures, knowledge that would prove critical in her future dealings with the Republic. The abrupt and violent end of her most powerful patron and lover left her in an incredibly vulnerable position, stripped of her primary protector and ally. The political upheaval that followed Caesar's death created an intensely volatile environment in Rome, characterized by confusion, fear, and a desperate struggle for power among the various factions. Cleopatra, a foreign queen, the mother of Caesar's only acknowledged son, Caesarion, and a symbol of Caesar's perceived autocratic tendencies, became an immediate target of suspicion and resentment from the anti-Caesarian conspirators and conservative Republican elements. Recognizing the immense danger she was in, Cleopatra made a swift and decisive return to Egypt. Her immediate priority was the security of herself and, crucially, her son, Caesarion. There was no longer any benefit in remaining in Rome. In fact, her presence there was a liability, as she and Caesarion could easily be used as pawns or even eliminated by those seeking to erase Caesar's legacy. She departed Rome with her entourage and her son, sailing back to Alexandria, where she could rely on the loyalty of her own kingdom and the protective embrace of her court. Upon her return, Egypt found itself in a state of political realignment. While Cleopatra had been absent, her younger co-ruling brother, Ptolemy XIV, had nominally been on the throne. However, shortly after her return, Ptolemy XIV died, reportedly poisoned. While the exact circumstances of his death remain debated, many historians attribute it to Cleopatra, who, with Caesar gone, had no political reason to tolerate a co-ruler who could serve as a rival or a focal point for dissent. His death allowed her to rule alone, at least nominally, or to position Caesarion as her co-ruler, thereby strengthening her own position. The assassination of Caesar, while a devastating personal loss, also presented Cleopatra with an unforeseen opportunity to strengthen her position in Egypt. Without Caesar's direct oversight or the need to constantly navigate Roman political sensibilities in his presence, she could assert greater autonomy. She began to actively consolidate her power, leveraging her strong base of support among the Egyptian populace and the priesthood. She could now govern more independently, free from the immediate pressures of Roman politics, and focus on rebuilding her kingdom. However, the shadow of Rome remained, as the power vacuum left by Caesar's death led to a new series of civil wars among his potential successors, a struggle that Cleopatra would inevitably be drawn into, but now from a position of renewed strength within her own realm. She wasted no time in implementing a series of administrative reforms and policies aimed at stabilizing her kingdom, which had been weakened by decades of dynastic strife and foreign intervention. She streamlined the bureaucracy, sought to improve efficiency in tax collection, and worked to restore order to the legal system. Her intimate understanding of both Greek and Egyptian administrative practices allowed her to bridge the cultural divide and govern more effectively. Economically, Cleopatra focused on revitalizing Egypt's immense wealth-generating capacity. The fertile Nile Delta was the breadbasket of the Mediterranean, and she implemented measures to improve agricultural output, ensuring the consistent flow of grain. She also actively engaged in expanding trade networks, leveraging Alexandria's strategic position to foster commerce with various regions, from Arabia to India. This involved securing trade routes, promoting Egyptian exports, and attracting foreign merchants, all of which contributed to the kingdom's prosperity and replenished the royal treasury, which had been severely depleted by her father's costly Roman bribes and the recent wars. Her religious politics were particularly astute and central to her strategy of legitimizing her rule. Unlike many of her Ptolemaic predecessors, who had largely remained aloof from native Egyptian religious traditions, Cleopatra deliberately embraced them. She presented herself as the living incarnation of the goddess Isis, a powerful and revered deity in the Egyptian pantheon. This was not a mere symbolic gesture. She actively participated in ancient Egyptian religious ceremonies, commissioned temple building and restoration projects, and cultivated a strong relationship with the influential Egyptian priesthood. This strategic alignment with Egyptian religious identity resonated deeply with the native population, fostering a sense of loyalty and elevating her status from a foreign ruler to a true pharaoh, a divine monarch. Building projects and improvements were also a hallmark of her reign. While the grand scale of earlier Ptolemaic constructions might have been curtailed by financial realities, Cleopatra invested in infrastructure and public works that benefited both the Greek and Egyptian populations. These projects not only improved the physical landscape of her kingdom, but also served as visible symbols of her reign's stability and prosperity, reinforcing her legitimacy. Her relationship with the priesthood and nobles was carefully managed. By embracing Egyptian religious traditions, she gained the crucial support of the powerful priestly class, who held significant influence over the populace. She also worked to secure the loyalty of the Greek elite and the various noble families, balancing their interests with the needs of the broader Egyptian population. This delicate balancing act, combining astute administrative reforms, economic revitalization, and a strategic embrace of Egyptian identity, allowed Cleopatra to consolidate her power and usher in a period of relative stability and prosperity for Egypt under her sole rule, even as the Roman world plunged into further civil war. The conspirators who murdered Caesar, led by Brutus and Cassius, initially struggled to gain widespread support, while Caesar's loyalists, particularly Mark Antony, his trusted general, and Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and designated heir, began to consolidate their own power bases. This period saw the formation of the Second Triumvirate, an official political alliance between Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, aimed at avenging Caesar and restoring order. As the triumvirs divided the Roman world among themselves, the eastern provinces, including Egypt, fell under Antony's purview, setting the stage for his fateful encounter with Cleopatra. Their first encounter, perhaps the most famously romanticized meeting in history, took place in 41 BCE in the city of Tarsus, located in Cilicia, modern-day Turkey. Antony, as the newly appointed Roman governor of the East, summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus to answer for her alleged support of Caesar's assassins and to secure her loyalty and, more importantly, Egypt's vast resources for the triumvirate's impending war against the conspirators. Cleopatra, however, understood the power of spectacle and chose to make an entrance designed to overwhelm and impress. The famous barge description, vividly recounted by Plutarch, paints a magnificent picture of her arrival. She sailed up the Cydnus River on a gilded barge, its stern clad in gold, its sails of royal purple, and its oars of silver, beating time to the music of flutes and pipes. She was attended by servants dressed as Nereids and Cupids, while she herself reclined under a canopy of cloth of gold, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite. The air was heavy with the scent of burning perfumes, and the entire city of Tarsus turned out to witness this breathtaking spectacle. This entrance was not mere vanity. It was a masterful stroke of propaganda, designed to project an image of immense wealth, divine grace, and irresistible allure, immediately asserting her power and independence, even as she ostensibly came to answer a summons. The initial negotiations between Cleopatra and Antony were thus framed by this dramatic display. Antony, accustomed to the rough-and-tumble world of Roman military and politics, was reportedly captivated by her charisma, her intelligence, and her ability to converse on an equal footing, not merely by her beauty. Cleopatra, in turn, recognized in Antony a powerful figure, a Roman general of immense standing, and a potential new patron and partner to secure Egypt's future. Their personal and political chemistry was immediate and profound. Cleopatra offered Antony the immense resources of Egypt, particularly its grain and wealth, which were crucial for funding his military campaigns. Antony, in return, offered Cleopatra the protection and political leverage of Rome, ensuring her continued rule and safeguarding Egypt's independence against rival factions. Their relationship quickly transcended mere political alliance, evolving into a deep personal bond that would profoundly shape the destinies of both individuals and their respective empires. This meeting in Tarsus marked the beginning of a legendary partnership, one that would redefine the power dynamics of the Eastern Mediterranean and ultimately lead to a final, apocalyptic confrontation with Rome. Their initial alliance, born out of mutual political necessity, deepened into a genuine affection and intellectual connection. Cleopatra offered Antony the immense wealth and strategic resources of Egypt, particularly its crucial grain supply, which was indispensable for funding his military campaigns in the East. Antony, in turn, provided Cleopatra with the formidable military and political backing of Rome, solidifying her position on the throne and protecting Egypt from external threats and internal rivals. Their joint political and military ventures became a defining feature of their partnership. Antony, as the Roman triumvir responsible for the East, relied heavily on Egyptian support for his ambitious campaigns against Parthia and other kingdoms. Cleopatra actively participated in these endeavors, not merely as a financier, but as a strategic advisor and often a direct participant in military planning. She provided ships, supplies, and troops, effectively making Egypt a junior partner in Antony's Eastern Roman Empire. Their collaborative efforts aimed at consolidating Roman power in the East, while simultaneously expanding and securing the Ptolemaic kingdom's influence. Public appearances and propaganda were meticulously crafted to project an image of a unified and formidable power couple. In Egypt, they were often depicted together in reliefs and coinage, presenting Antony as a Hellenistic monarch alongside Cleopatra, who continued to embody the goddess Isis. In the East, they cultivated an image of divinely inspired rulers, aligning themselves with various Greek deities. This propaganda was designed to legitimize their authority, to inspire loyalty among their subjects, and to project an image of strength to their rivals, especially Octavian in the West. The creation of a new power base in the East was a central objective of their partnership. Antony, increasingly estranged from Octavian and the political machinations of Rome, sought to establish a strong, independent sphere of influence centered on Alexandria and the eastern provinces. Cleopatra was instrumental in this vision, providing the cultural and economic foundation for this Eastern Empire. Together, they aimed to create a stable and prosperous region, free from the constant infighting that plagued Rome. This vision, however, directly challenged Octavian's ambition for a unified Roman world under his sole authority. The impact of their relationship on Roman-Egyptian relations was revolutionary. For the first time in centuries, an Egyptian ruler was not merely a client queen, but an active partner in Roman imperial policy, wielding significant influence over a Roman triumvir. This unprecedented level of integration, coupled with the personal nature of their bond and the birth of their children, blurred the lines between Roman and Egyptian sovereignty. While it benefited Egypt in the short term by securing its independence, it also drew the kingdom inextricably into the heart of Roman politics, ultimately leading to the final existential confrontation that would decide the fate of both Cleopatra and the Ptolemaic dynasty. Their territorial expansions were carefully orchestrated to re-establish and even exceed the territorial grandeur of the early Ptolemaic and Seleucid empires. Antony, with Cleopatra's crucial financial and logistical support, embarked on a series of military campaigns, most notably against Parthia, a powerful rival to Rome in the east. While the Parthian campaign ultimately proved costly and largely unsuccessful, Antony did manage to regain control over significant territories in Syria, Cilicia, and parts of Asia Minor, which were then often granted to Cleopatra or her children as client kingdoms. These grants, known as the Donations of Alexandria in 34 BCE, were a dramatic articulation of their vision. Cleopatra and her children received extensive territories, including Cyprus, parts of Syria and Cilicia, and even Judea and portions of Arabia, effectively reconstituting a vast Ptolemaic empire under Roman protection. This move was not merely about personal enrichment. It was a strategic effort to create a buffer zone against Parthia, to secure vital trade routes, and to establish a strong, unified economic and political bloc in the east, with Alexandria as its capital. The military campaigns and conquests were largely driven by Antony's strategic ambitions, but Cleopatra's role was indispensable. She provided the necessary naval resources, financial backing, and intelligence that allowed Antony to operate effectively in the region. Her knowledge of the Eastern Mediterranean, her linguistic skills, and her diplomatic networks were invaluable assets in securing local loyalties and managing the complex political landscape. Administrative organization of these newly acquired or re-emphasized territories involved a delicate balance of Roman and Hellenistic governance. Antony, while asserting Roman authority, often allowed local rulers, including Cleopatra's appointees, significant autonomy, fostering stability. Cleopatra, in her newly expanded domains, sought to integrate them into the Ptolemaic economic system, leveraging trade and resource management to enhance the prosperity of her kingdom. Cultural integration efforts were also a key component of their strategy. Antony, increasingly adopting Hellenistic customs, presented himself as a Philhellene, a lover of Greek culture, and aligned himself with Greek deities, mirroring Cleopatra's own embrace of Egyptian traditions. This cultural syncretism was intended to appeal to the diverse populations of the Eastern Mediterranean, fostering a sense of shared identity and loyalty to their new rulers. They patronized arts and sciences, continued the intellectual traditions of Alexandria, and promoted a vision of a flourishing, culturally rich Eastern Empire. Economic development initiatives were paramount, as the vast resources of these territories, particularly grain from Egypt and timber from Syria, were essential for funding their ambitious projects and maintaining their military. By consolidating control over key trade routes and agricultural lands, Cleopatra and Antony sought to create a self-sufficient and economically powerful Eastern realm, capable of challenging the growing dominance of Octavian's Roman West. This grand vision of an Eastern Empire, however, ultimately placed them on a collision course with Octavian, who saw their actions as a direct threat to the unity and future of the Roman world. Their union produced 3 children who were explicitly positioned as heirs to a formidable Greco-Roman legacy. The first to arrive were the twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, born in 40 BCE. Alexander Helios, whose name Helios, sun symbolized his anticipated brilliance and dominion, was designated as a future king of Armenia, Media, and Parthia in the infamous donations of Alexandria. His twin sister, Cleopatra Selene, named Selene Moon, was intended to rule over Cyrenaica and Libya. These grandiose titles were not simply honorifics but represented tangible territorial claims and a clear statement of their parents' imperial ambitions. Subsequently, in 36 BCE, their third child, Ptolemy Philadelphus, was born. His name, echoing a revered Ptolemaic ancestor, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, further underscored the dynastic legacy. Ptolemy Philadelphus was designated as the future ruler of Syria, Cilicia, and Phoenicia, territories that were historically significant and economically vital. These allocations, publicly announced with great fanfare, were a bold declaration of their intent to establish a new powerful dynasty that would encompass both Roman and Hellenistic elements, with Alexandria as its cultural and political center. The education and grooming of these heirs were undoubtedly meticulous, designed to prepare them for their future royal responsibilities. Raised in the intellectual and cultural hub of Alexandria, they would have received a comprehensive Hellenistic education, likely including languages, rhetoric, and governance, much like their mother. They were constantly exposed to the intricacies of court life, diplomacy, and the realities of power. Cleopatra, in particular, would have instilled in them a strong sense of their royal heritage and their unique position as the children of 2 of the most powerful figures in the world. The political significance of these children was immense. They were living symbols of the alliance between Cleopatra and Antony, tangible proof of their commitment to each other and their shared vision. For Cleopatra, they represented the continuation of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a way to ensure her lineage would endure, potentially even merging with Roman power. For Antony, they were heirs to his Eastern ambitions, future rulers who would govern the vast territories he envisioned for his sphere of influence. Their existence solidified his ties to Egypt, and provided a strong personal motivation for his Eastern policies. Family life in Alexandria, while undoubtedly luxurious and politically charged, also offered glimpses of genuine affection. Cleopatra and Antony, despite their public roles, seem to have genuinely cherished their children. Their decision to name the twins after the sun and moon, celestial bodies of immense power and beauty, speaks to their hopes and aspirations for their offspring. The children were raised in the heart of the Alexandrian palace, surrounded by the finest tutors and courtiers, prepared for a future that, unbeknownst to them, would be dramatically and tragically cut short by the inexorable march of Roman civil war. Architectural projects and city improvements, while perhaps not on the colossal scale of the earlier Ptolemies, were undertaken to maintain and enhance the grandeur of Alexandria. Efforts were made to preserve and restore existing structures, and new constructions likely included temples, public buildings, and infrastructure necessary for the city's burgeoning population and dynamic economy. These projects were not merely utilitarian, they served as visible symbols of the dynasty's legitimacy and the prosperity of the kingdom under Cleopatra's rule. Cleopatra was a fervent patron of the arts and sciences, continuing a long-standing Ptolemaic tradition. The Maushan and the Great Library of Alexandria, despite some damage during the Alexandrian War, remained vital centers of learning. Scholars, philosophers, and artists continued to be attracted to Alexandria, drawn by the intellectual environment and royal patronage. Cleopatra herself, an exceptionally educated woman, engaged directly with intellectuals and undoubtedly supported their work, fostering advancements in various fields. A key aspect of her cultural achievements was the deliberate synthesis of religious and cultural traditions, particularly between Greek and Egyptian elements. Cleopatra actively promoted a Greco-Egyptian religious syncretism, presenting herself as the living embodiment of the goddess Isis, a powerful and widely revered deity whose cult was gaining popularity throughout the Mediterranean. This strategic alignment with Egyptian religion was reflected in temple architecture, iconography, and public ceremonies, which blended pharaonic aesthetics with Hellenistic influences. This cultural fusion aimed to bridge the divide between the Greek ruling class and the native Egyptian population, fostering a more unified cultural identity within the kingdom. Educational initiatives flourished under her patronage, ensuring that the next generation of administrators, scholars, and elites were well versed in both Greek and, increasingly, Egyptian learning. The royal children, including Caesarion and her children with Antony, received comprehensive instruction in multiple languages and disciplines, reflecting Cleopatra's own intellectual breadth. This commitment to education ensured the continuity of Alexandria's status as an intellectual capital. Perhaps her most significant cultural achievement was her conscious effort to preserve Egyptian heritage. Unlike many of her predecessors, who had largely remained aloof from native Egyptian culture, Cleopatra actively embraced it. Her fluency in the Egyptian language, her participation in traditional rituals, and her patronage of Egyptian temples demonstrated a profound respect for the ancient civilization she ruled. This deliberate embrace helped to re-legitimize the Ptolemaic dynasty in the eyes of the native Egyptians, ensuring that the rich cultural legacy of the pharaohs continued to thrive under Hellenistic rule, even as the shadow of Rome grew larger. She meticulously cultivated the image of herself as the living incarnation of the goddess Isis, a deity of immense power, wisdom, and maternal benevolence within the Egyptian pantheon. This was a deliberate and calculated move, drawing upon centuries of pharaonic tradition where the ruler was considered a divine intermediary between the gods and humanity. By identifying with Isis, Cleopatra tapped into a deeply ingrained religious belief system, elevating her status beyond that of a mere mortal queen to a divine monarch, a true pharaoh. Religious ceremonies and rituals were critical avenues through which she reinforced this divine status. She actively participated in traditional Egyptian religious festivals and rites, often appearing in elaborate regalia that symbolically linked her to Isis. These public demonstrations of piety and divine connection were powerful tools of propaganda, fostering loyalty and reverence among the native Egyptian populace, who had often felt alienated by the Greek-speaking Ptolemaic rulers. Her willingness to engage directly with Egyptian religious practices set her apart from many of her ancestors and proved to be a significant factor in securing her popular support. Temple building and restoration projects were another important aspect of her religious policy. Cleopatra commissioned the construction of new temples and supported the restoration of existing ones, often dedicating them to Isis and other Egyptian deities. These projects not only demonstrated her devotion, but also provided employment and solidified her relationship with the powerful and influential Egyptian priesthood. Inscriptions and reliefs in these temples often depicted her in traditional pharaonic style, offering sacrifices to the gods, further reinforcing her image as a legitimate and divine ruler. Her relationship with the Egyptian priesthood was carefully cultivated and mutually beneficial. The priests, guardians of ancient traditions and interpreters of divine will, lent their considerable authority to her rule, legitimizing her claims to divine lineage. In return, Cleopatra provided them with patronage, financial support, and respect for their customs, ensuring their continued loyalty and cooperation. This alliance with the priesthood was a cornerstone of her domestic policy, providing a stable foundation for her rule. The Greco-Egyptian religious synthesis that characterized the later Ptolemaic period reached its zenith under Cleopatra. While she embraced Egyptian deities, she also maintained her Hellenistic identity and patronized Greek cults. This blending of religious traditions allowed her to appeal to both her Greek and Egyptian subjects, creating a more unified religious landscape within her kingdom. Her identification with Isis, in particular, resonated across cultures, as the cult of Isis was already gaining popularity in the wider Hellenistic and Roman worlds. By presenting herself as a universal divine figure, Cleopatra not only secured her domestic rule, but also projected an image of powerful, divinely sanctioned authority onto the international stage. Egypt was, first and foremost, the breadbasket of the Mediterranean, its fertile Nile delta producing vast quantities of grain, an indispensable commodity for the Roman world. Cleopatra understood the strategic importance of this resource and implemented measures to ensure agricultural improvements, including maintaining and optimizing the intricate irrigation systems crucial for maximizing crop yields. Efficient management of grain production and distribution was paramount, providing both food for her populace and a vital export commodity that generated immense revenue for the crown. Beyond agriculture, Cleopatra actively sought to expand Egypt's trade relationships. Alexandria, with its superb harbor and strategic location, served as a nexus for trade routes connecting the Mediterranean with Africa, Arabia, and India. She encouraged merchants, secured trade routes, and fostered commercial exchange, bringing in luxury goods, spices, precious metals, and other valuable commodities that enriched the royal treasury through customs duties and taxes. Her fluency in multiple languages facilitated direct negotiations with foreign traders and envoys, allowing her to forge stronger economic ties without relying on intermediaries. Currency reforms were also undertaken to stabilize the Egyptian economy. The Ptolemaic coinage system had, at times, suffered from debasement, leading to economic instability. Cleopatra issued new coinage, often bearing her own image, to restore confidence in the currency and facilitate trade. These reforms were crucial for maintaining economic stability and ensuring the smooth functioning of her kingdom's commerce. Industrial development, though perhaps not on a modern scale, also received attention. Egypt was known for its papyrus production, textiles, and various crafts. Cleopatra likely promoted these industries, recognizing their contribution to the economy and their role in providing employment for her subjects. The exploitation of Egypt's mineral resources, such as gold from the eastern desert, also continued under her reign, contributing to the royal wealth. Ultimately, Cleopatra's economic policies were aimed at maximizing Egypt's prosperity and securing its financial independence, or at least its ability to exert leverage over Rome. A wealthy Egypt meant a strong Egypt, capable of funding its own defense, maintaining its infrastructure, and crucially, providing the financial resources necessary to secure powerful Roman allies like Caesar and Antony. Her astute management of these economic levers was a testament to her strategic genius, ensuring that Egypt remained a coveted and formidable power in the ancient world, even as Roman hegemony grew. While she was not a general who personally led troops into battle on horseback, her command was exercised through strategic planning, naval development, and the organization of her forces. She understood that in the volatile geopolitical landscape of the 1st century BCE, military strength was paramount for preserving Egypt's independence. Naval power and development were a particular focus. Egypt, with its long coastline and strategic position on the Mediterranean, relied heavily on its fleet for defense, trade protection, and power projection. Cleopatra invested significantly in the Ptolemaic navy, ensuring that her ships were well-built, well-equipped, and competently manned. The Egyptian fleet, which she contributed to Antony's forces, was a formidable asset, capable of challenging even Roman naval strength, as demonstrated at Actium. She understood that control of the seas was vital for maintaining Egypt's economic lifelines and its ability to intervene in regional conflicts. Her army organization and training reflected a blend of traditional Ptolemaic practices and adaptations to the Roman military model. While relying on a core of native Egyptian troops, she also employed numerous Greek and other foreign mercenaries, a common practice in the Hellenistic world, to bolster her forces. These troops underwent rigorous training, ensuring they were capable of both land and sea operations. She oversaw the provisioning, logistics, and command structure of her military, demonstrating a comprehensive understanding of military administration. Strategic planning and execution were areas where Cleopatra truly excelled. She consistently made shrewd decisions regarding alliances, troop deployments, and resource allocation, often in consultation with her Roman partners, Caesar and Antony. Her ability to assess threats, identify opportunities, and implement complex military strategies was evident throughout her reign, from her return from exile to the final confrontation with Octavian. She understood the importance of intelligence gathering, reconnaissance, and anticipating enemy movements. Military innovations under Cleopatra's leadership might not have been revolutionary in terms of weaponry, but her strategic use of resources and her adaptation to changing military technologies were noteworthy. She leveraged Egypt's wealth to purchase the best equipment and attract the most skilled mercenaries. Her understanding of naval tactics, particularly in deploying her fleet in conjunction with Roman forces, was crucial in several campaigns. Ultimately, Cleopatra's military leadership was characterized by a pragmatic and intelligent approach to power, recognizing that a strong and well-managed military was the ultimate guarantor of her kingdom's sovereignty in a world dominated by expansionist empires. Rising tensions with Rome were inevitable, as Antony's increasingly Eastern orientation and his lavish grants of Roman-controlled territories to Cleopatra and their children directly challenged Octavian's authority and his vision of a unified Roman state under his sole leadership. Octavian skillfully exploited these actions for propaganda purposes, painting Antony as a man corrupted by an exotic foreign queen, abandoning his Roman duties and jeopardizing the Republic. The propaganda war and public opinion were crucial battlegrounds. Octavian launched a relentless campaign of vilification against Cleopatra, portraying her not as an intelligent queen, but as a seductive sorceress who had ensnared a great Roman general. He accused her of seeking to establish an Eastern empire that would dominate Rome, even suggesting that she intended to move Rome's capital to Alexandria. This narrative resonated deeply with Roman fears of Oriental despotism and foreign influence, turning public sentiment against Antony and, by extension, against Cleopatra. Antony, for his part, struggled to counter this propaganda effectively, often appearing to confirm Octavian's accusations through his actions. Political maneuvering intensified as both sides prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Octavian meticulously built alliances within the Roman Senate and among the Roman elite, presenting himself as the defender of traditional Roman values and the Republic against Antony's perceived tyranny and Cleopatra's foreign threat. Antony, increasingly isolated in the West, relied on his loyal legions and the resources provided by Cleopatra and his Eastern client kings. The Second Triumvirate, once a powerful alliance, dissolved into open hostility, with both Octavian and Antony vying for ultimate control of the Roman state. Military preparations were extensive on both sides. Octavian amassed a large and well-trained Roman army and a formidable fleet under the command of his brilliant admiral Agrippa. He secured the loyalty of the western provinces and their resources. Cleopatra and Antony, in response, combined their forces, assembling a vast army drawn from Egypt and various eastern kingdoms, along with a powerful fleet, a significant portion of which was supplied by Egypt. Their naval strength, in particular, was considerable, consisting of large, heavily armed warships. Diplomatic efforts, though perhaps half-hearted, were made to avert full-scale war. Antony, through intermediaries, attempted to negotiate with Octavian, suggesting a division of the empire or other compromises. However, Octavian, sensing his advantage and driven by a relentless ambition, rejected these overtures, choosing instead to escalate the conflict. He formally declared war, not on Antony, a Roman citizen, but on Cleopatra, the foreign queen, framing the conflict as a defensive war to protect Rome from an external threat. This declaration effectively forced Antony's hand, cementing his alliance with Cleopatra and setting the stage for the final, decisive confrontation that would determine the fate of the Mediterranean world. The strategic situation before the battle favored Octavian in many respects. Antony and Cleopatra had gathered their massive combined forces, a large army and a powerful fleet, at Actium, on the western coast of Greece. However, they were blockaded by Octavian's superior naval commander Marcus Agrippa, who had skillfully cut off their supply lines and isolated their forces. Antony's land army, while formidable, was becoming increasingly demoralized by disease and desertion, and his strategic position was deteriorating. Naval preparations and planning were intense on both sides. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet consisted of around 500 ships, many of them large, heavily armed quinqueremes and disseries, designed for ramming and boarding actions. These ships, though imposing, were slower and less maneuverable. Octavian's fleet, under Agrippa, comprised approximately 400 ships, generally smaller and more agile Liburnian galleys, designed for speed and tactical flexibility. Agrippa's plan was to use his superior maneuverability to outflank and isolate Antony's heavier ships, while his archers and missile troops would target the enemy crews. The battle itself unfolded with devastating consequences for Cleopatra and Antony. The engagement began with a standoff, as neither side wished to initiate a full-scale attack in the confined waters. Eventually, Antony's ships, attempting to break the blockade, engaged Octavian's fleet. The fighting was fierce, with Antony's heavy ships initially holding their own, but Agrippa's lighter vessels proved more effective in the open sea. They encircled Antony's fleet, attacking from multiple angles and causing chaos. In a pivotal and controversial moment during the battle, Cleopatra, commanding her squadron of 60 Egyptian ships, broke through the lines and sailed south, heading for Egypt. Antony, witnessing her departure, made the fateful decision to abandon his flagship and follow her, transferring to one of her ships. This retreat, whether pre-planned as a strategic maneuver to preserve their remaining forces or an impulsive act of desperation, proved disastrous for their morale. The consequences of this retreat were immediate and catastrophic. Antony's remaining fleet, without its commander, soon collapsed, with many ships surrendering or being destroyed. His land army, left leaderless and demoralized, held out for a week but eventually capitulated to Octavian. Actium was a decisive victory for Octavian, marking the end of Antony's military power and effectively ending the civil war. The impact on Egyptian-Roman relations was profound. The defeat at Actium shattered Cleopatra and Antony's vision of an Eastern empire and left Egypt vulnerable to Octavian's conquest. It signaled the end of Ptolemaic independence and paved the way for Egypt's absorption into the Roman Empire. For Cleopatra, Actium was a crushing blow, transforming her from a powerful queen into a hunted fugitive, desperately trying to salvage her kingdom and her dynasty from the inevitable advance of Octavian. Their final days in Alexandria were characterized by a desperate struggle for survival, a flurry of defensive preparations, and a series of ultimately futile negotiations. Upon their return, Cleopatra immediately began to fortify Alexandria, strengthening its defenses and preparing for a siege. She also explored audacious escape plans, including the possibility of relocating her fleet and treasury to India, though this proved impractical. She understood that time was running out, and that Octavian would not rest until he had secured Egypt and eliminated his rivals. Antony, meanwhile, was in a state of profound despair and erratic behavior. His legions had deserted him, and his remaining forces were meager. He attempted to rally support, but his authority was severely diminished. The once powerful triumvir, now a broken man, struggled to cope with the magnitude of his defeat. Cleopatra, however, maintained her legendary composure and strategic thinking, even in the face of overwhelming odds. She initiated negotiations with Octavian, attempting to secure terms for herself and her children. Her primary objective was to save Egypt from becoming a Roman province and to preserve her dynastic line. She offered to abdicate in favor of her children with Antony, or even Caesar, hoping to appeal to Octavian's sense of continuity or his desire to avoid outright annexation. She sent envoys with lavish gifts and promises of cooperation, trying to ascertain Octavian's intentions and find any possible avenue for compromise. Octavian, however, was resolute in his demands. He was determined to capture Cleopatra alive, parade her in his triumph in Rome, and secure Egypt's immense wealth for the Roman treasury. While he encouraged Cleopatra to betray Antony, promising her lenient terms if she did so, he offered no real concessions regarding Egypt's independence or the future of her children. He understood that as long as Cleopatra and Caesar lived, they represented a potential threat to his singular authority. Cleopatra's last political moves were a desperate attempt to manipulate her circumstances. She reportedly sent secret messages to Octavian, perhaps even suggesting she would be willing to eliminate Antony if it meant saving herself and her children. She also tried to consolidate her remaining resources and rally any lingering loyalists. However, the tide had irrevocably turned. Her personal state of mind during these final days would have been a complex mixture of despair, defiance, and a fierce determination to protect her legacy. She was a queen facing the utter collapse of her kingdom and the imminent end of her life. Yet, even in this dire situation, she remained a formidable figure, calculating and resolute. She was preparing not just for a battle, but for the final act of her life, one that she intended to control on her own terms. Refusing to be paraded as a captive in Rome, the advance of Octavian's legions into Egypt marked the beginning of the end, bringing her face to face with an inevitable fate. Octavian's forces had entered Alexandria, and Antony, believing Cleopatra to be dead, fell on his own sword, though he lingered long enough to be brought to her, dying in her arms. Cleopatra was then taken captive by Octavian's men, but she was closely guarded, for Octavian's primary desire was to parade her in his triumph in Rome as the ultimate symbol of his victory. However, Cleopatra was determined to avoid this humiliation. The most widely accepted account provided by Plutarch and Cassius Dio suggests she committed suicide by allowing an Aspi Egyptian cobra to bite her, either smuggled in a basket of figs or delivered by a servant. Another theory posits that she used a poisoned hairpin. What is clear is that she chose her own end, denying Octavian the spectacle he so eagerly desired. Archaeological evidence regarding her death is, by its nature, scarce and indirect, as her body was never recovered or definitively identified. However, the context of the events, the presence of Roman guards, and the subsequent official Roman narrative all lend credence to the idea of a deliberate act of suicide. The discovery of snake iconography in Ptolemaic funerary contexts supports the symbolic power of the asp as a means of achieving divine status in death, aligning with her self-identification as Isis. The impact of Cleopatra's death on Egypt and Alexandria was immediate and profound. With her demise, the nearly 3-century-old Ptolemaic dynasty came to an abrupt end. Egypt, the last great Hellenistic kingdom, ceased to be an independent entity and was formally annexed as a Roman province, directly administered by Octavian and his successors. Alexandria, while retaining its economic importance, lost its status as a royal capital and the seat of a sovereign power. The transition was swift and decisive, marking a new era of Roman imperial rule over the ancient land of the pharaohs. Octavian's actions following her death were calculated to consolidate his power and secure Egypt's resources. He ordered the execution of Caesarion, Cleopatra's son with Julius Caesar, eliminating any potential rival to his claim as Caesar's sole heir. The children she had with Antony, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, were spared, brought to Rome, and raised in the household of Octavia, Antony's Roman wife, and Octavian's sister. This act of clemency, while seemingly humane, also served to neutralize them as political threats, as they were integrated into Roman society, far from any potential power base in Egypt. The fate of Cleopatra's children was varied. Caesarion's execution ensured that no direct heir of Caesar could challenge Octavian. The long-term fate of Alexander Helios and Ptolemy Philadelphus is unclear, as they disappear from the historical record, likely dying young. Cleopatra Selene, however, survived and flourished. She was married to Juba II, a client king of Mauritania, effectively establishing a new dynasty in North Africa and becoming a successful and influential queen in her own right, carrying a fragment of the Ptolemaic legacy into the Roman imperial era. Cleopatra's death thus marked not only the end of her life, but the dramatic conclusion of an entire epoch, ushering in the undisputed reign of Octavian as the first Roman emperor, Augustus, and fundamentally reshaping the political map of the ancient world. This was not a gradual assimilation, but a swift and decisive annexation, marking the end of nearly 3 centuries of Ptolemaic rule and thousands of years of pharaonic sovereignty. The changes in administration were immediate and far-reaching. Octavian, now effectively the sole ruler of the Roman world, declared Egypt his personal domain, rather than a senatorial province. This unique status meant that it was governed by a prefect appointed directly by the emperor, typically from the equestrian class, rather than a senator. This unusual arrangement was a reflection of Egypt's immense wealth and strategic importance, particularly its grain supply, which Octavian deemed too vital to entrust to the often ambitious and unpredictable senatorial class. Roman legions were stationed permanently in Egypt to ensure control and suppress any potential revolts. Cultural transformations were also profound, though often occurring gradually. While Alexandria continued to be a vibrant center of Hellenistic culture and learning, the official language of administration shifted increasingly towards Latin, though Greek remained widely spoken. Roman imperial cults were introduced, and Roman legal systems began to supplant or coexist with existing Ptolemaic and Egyptian laws. However, many ancient Egyptian religious traditions and customs persisted, particularly in the countryside, reflecting the deep roots of native culture. The Roman rulers, while imposing their authority, also recognized the importance of maintaining a degree of continuity with pharaonic traditions, often depicting themselves in Egyptian temples as pharaohs, albeit foreign ones, to legitimize their rule in the eyes of the native population. Economic adjustments were a primary concern for the new Roman administration. Egypt's immense agricultural output, particularly its grain, was now directly appropriated to feed the Roman populace and its armies, providing a crucial subsidy that stabilized the Roman state. The sophisticated Ptolemaic tax system was adapted and streamlined for Roman benefit, ensuring a consistent flow of revenue to Rome. While trade continued to flourish through Alexandria, the profits of this commerce now largely flowed into Roman coffers. The economic focus shifted from serving the Ptolemaic dynasty's ambitions to directly supporting the Roman Empire. The legacy of Cleopatra in Egyptian society paradoxically became intertwined with the Roman narrative. While she was the last independent pharaoh, her image was largely shaped by Roman propaganda in the centuries that followed. However, among the native Egyptian populace, her memory as a ruler who embraced their language and traditions likely endured in a more positive light than that of her Greek predecessors. For the Romans, Egypt under Cleopatra became a symbol of the wealth and exoticism that they had now absorbed, but also a cautionary tale of the dangers of Oriental influence. The land itself, with its ancient monuments and fertile fields, continued to thrive under Roman rule for centuries, but its distinct political identity had been definitively extinguished with the death of its last queen. This narrative served not merely to justify his conquest of Egypt, but to consolidate his own power by demonizing his Roman rival, Mark Antony, and by extension, the foreign queen who had supposedly corrupted him. Octavian's narrative presented him as the savior of Rome, defending traditional Roman values in the Republic from the twin threats of Antony's Oriental despotism and Cleopatra's seductive foreign influence. Literary descriptions from Roman authors like Virgil, Horace, and later, Plutarch and Cassius Dio were instrumental in shaping this image. She was often depicted as a fatal woman, femme fatale, an enchanting but dangerous temptress who used her beauty and wiles to ensnare powerful Roman men. Horace's famous ode, Nunc est bibendum, celebrates her defeat as the triumph of Roman virtue over an insane queen who harbored grandiose ambitions to destroy the capital. Plutarch's biography, while offering more nuanced details, still largely frames her through the lens of her relationships with Caesar and Antony, emphasizing her charisma and seductive power rather than her political acumen or administrative skills. Artistic representations, particularly on coins and sculptures, further reinforced this negative image. While some coins issued by Antony depicted Cleopatra with idealized Greek features, Octavian's propaganda often presented her in a less flattering light, or simply erased her image, focusing instead on his own triumph and the subjugation of Egypt. The imagery of the asp, her chosen instrument of death, became a powerful symbol of her exotic, dangerous nature. The political use of Cleopatra's image by Octavian was multifaceted. Firstly, it allowed him to frame the civil war against Antony not as an internal Roman conflict, but as a righteous war against a foreign enemy, thereby absolving himself of the charge of fighting fellow Romans. Secondly, by portraying Cleopatra as a decadent, luxurious, and power-hungry queen, he implicitly contrasted her with Roman Republican ideals of austerity, virtue, and self-control, positioning himself as the embodiment of these traditional values. This propaganda effectively neutralized any sympathy Antony might have garnered and justified the annexation of Egypt as a necessary measure to protect Rome. The evolution of the Roman perspective over time saw her image solidify into that of the ultimate foreign seductress. While later Roman authors might have offered slightly more balanced accounts, the initial powerful propaganda laid the foundation for her enduring negative portrayal in Western culture. This Roman narrative, designed to serve a specific political agenda, profoundly shaped how Cleopatra was understood for centuries, obscuring her true political genius and her multifaceted role as a powerful, independent ruler. For the most part, the negative Roman portrayal of Cleopatra as a seductive, dangerous foreign queen persisted, and was even amplified, fitting neatly into medieval moralizing narratives. Arabic historical accounts, however, presented a somewhat different perspective, reflecting the rich intellectual traditions of the Islamic Golden Age. While Arabic scholars were aware of her association with Caesar and Antony, their narratives often focused more on her intellectual prowess, her knowledge of sciences, particularly alchemy and medicine, and her administrative skills. She was sometimes described as a wise queen, a philosopher, and a scholar, embodying the ideal of a learned ruler. These accounts, often drawing from Alexandrian traditions, offered a more balanced view, recognizing her intelligence and her contributions to the intellectual life of the city, rather than solely fixating on her romantic entanglements. European medieval traditions, in contrast, largely inherited and perpetuated the Roman view, often viewing her through the prism of Christian morality. For Christian writers, Cleopatra became a cautionary tale of pagan excess, lust, and the dangers of worldly ambition. She was frequently depicted as a symbol of vanity and moral decay, her story serving as a didactic example against the temptations of the flesh and the perils of unbridled passion. Her role in Roman history was often simplified, reduced to that of the woman who led Mark Antony astray, neglecting her political agency and her strategic brilliance. Religious interpretations further cemented this negative image. In Christian allegory, she was sometimes associated with figures of temptation or moral weakness, fitting into broader narratives about the fall of great men due to female influence. Her suicide, while recognized, was often viewed through a lens of despair and pagan sin, rather than as an act of defiance. Artistic representations in medieval Europe were relatively rare and often stylized, reflecting the limited direct knowledge of classical aesthetics. When she did appear, it was usually in illuminated manuscripts or moralizing allegories, where she was depicted as an exotic, often scantily clad figure, embodying the stereotypes of the East and reinforcing her role as a symbol of temptation. Literary adaptations, such as those found in Chaucer's Legend of Good Women, continued to portray her in a tragic, yet often morally ambiguous light. While Chaucer attempts to rescue her from outright villainy, her story is still primarily framed around her love for Antony and her ultimate downfall, rather than her political achievements. The medieval period therefore largely solidified the image of Cleopatra as a figure of romantic tragedy and moral warning in the West, while some Eastern traditions maintained a more intellectual and administrative appreciation of her reign. The availability of classical texts, particularly Plutarch's Lives, provided Renaissance scholars, artists, and writers with richer, more detailed narratives of her life, allowing for more nuanced characterizations. Artistic depictions of Cleopatra flourished during the Renaissance, reflecting the era's fascination with classical antiquity and the human form. Artists like Michelangelo and Annibale Carracci, among others, depicted her in various scenes, from her final moments with the asp to her encounters with Caesar and Antony. These portrayals often emphasized her beauty, grace, and sensuality, but also hinted at her power and tragic fate. She became a popular subject for portraiture, often shown with elaborate costumes and exotic elements, embodying an idealized vision of classical beauty and oriental splendor. The visual arts helped to cement her image as an iconic historical figure, capable of inspiring both awe and sympathy. Literary works of the period further explored her story, often focusing on the dramatic and tragic aspects of her life. William Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, written later in the Elizabethan era, but deeply rooted in Renaissance humanism and classical scholarship, stands as the most influential literary adaptation. Shakespeare portrayed her as a figure of immense complexity, a queen of boundless passion, wit, and ambition, whose love for Antony ultimately led to her downfall. His Cleopatra was no mere temptress but a fully realized character, capable of inspiring both admiration and condemnation, thus challenging the simplistic Roman propaganda. Other playwrights and poets also explored her story, often emphasizing her exotic allure and her tragic end. Historical studies during the Renaissance began to adopt a more critical approach to ancient texts. Though the Roman bias against Cleopatra was still prevalent, scholars started to analyze the political contexts of her reign and her interactions with Roman leaders, recognizing her as a significant political player rather than solely a romantic figure. However, the lack of extensive Egyptian sources continued to limit a fully balanced perspective. The cultural impact of these Renaissance interpretations was profound. They elevated Cleopatra from a medieval moral warning to a figure of tragic grandeur, a powerful woman whose life intersected with the destinies of empires. Her story became a compelling narrative of love, power, and ultimate loss, resonating with the humanist ideals of the Renaissance, which celebrated individual agency and the complexities of human experience. This period laid the groundwork for her enduring presence in Western imagination as an iconic queen, captivating and enigmatic. During the Enlightenment, there was a growing emphasis on reason, historical accuracy, and a more critical approach to ancient sources. Scholars began to question the overtly propagandistic Roman accounts, seeking to understand Cleopatra as a political actor and an intelligent ruler, rather than simply a seductive figure. This era saw a greater interest in her administrative skills, her linguistic abilities, and her strategic thinking, attempting to separate historical fact from Roman smear campaigns. However, the emphasis on rationality sometimes struggled to fully reconcile her passionate narrative with Enlightenment ideals of measured statesmanship. Artistic representations continued to flourish, often reflecting a shift towards more dramatic and emotionally charged depictions during the Romantic era. While Enlightenment art might have sought a more classical restraint, Romantic painters embraced the exoticism, tragedy, and intense emotionality of Cleopatra's story. Artists like Jean-Léon Gérôme depicted her in grand theatrical scenes, emphasizing her sensuality, her power, and the dramatic moments of her life and death. The death of Cleopatra became a particularly popular subject, allowing artists to explore themes of beauty, despair, and defiance. These works often highlighted the opulence of her court and the perceived exoticism of Egypt, catering to the romantic fascination with the Orient. Literary works of both periods continued to engage with her narrative. In the Enlightenment, tragedies often explored her story, while the Romantic period saw a surge in poetry and prose that delved into her emotional life and her passionate relationships. Poets like Théophile Gautier and Victor Hugo were drawn to her dramatic allure, portraying her as a figure of grandeur and intense feeling. The focus shifted from her political machinations to her inner world, her loves, and her ultimate tragic end, aligning with the Romantic emphasis on individual emotion and the sublime. Opera and theatre became particularly potent mediums for reinterpreting Cleopatra's story. Operas by Handel, and later, more elaborate productions during the Romantic era, brought her narrative to life on stage with soaring arias, elaborate costumes, and dramatic staging. These performances captivated audiences, cementing her place as a figure of operatic tragedy and grand spectacle. The theatrical adaptations often heightened the romantic and dramatic elements, making her story accessible and emotionally resonant to a wider public. Her influence on popular culture during these periods gradually expanded as travel to Egypt became more feasible, albeit for a privileged few. The fascination with ancient Egypt and its last queen grew. Books, plays, and artworks ensured that Cleopatra remained a well-known and captivating figure, even as the details of her historical reality continued to be debated and reinterpreted through the lenses of evolving intellectual and artistic movements. Underwater archaeology in Alexandria has been particularly transformative, revealing tangible remnants of the city as Cleopatra knew it. The submerged ruins of the ancient royal quarter, including parts of the palace complex and important temples, have been identified off the coast of Alexandria. Divers have recovered numerous artifacts, including columns, statues, and architectural fragments, providing a glimpse into the grandeur of the city and the environment in which Cleopatra lived and ruled. These finds corroborate historical accounts of Alexandria's splendor and offer direct physical evidence of the Ptolemaic dynasty's presence. Excavations on land have also yielded significant insights. Temple and palace remains throughout Egypt, dating to Cleopatra's reign, have been uncovered and meticulously studied. For instance, the Temple of Dendera, dedicated to the goddess Hathor, features a famous relief depicting Cleopatra and Caesarion, her son with Julius Caesar, offering sacrifices to the gods. This relief is invaluable as one of the very few contemporary depictions of Cleopatra in an Egyptian context, providing a crucial counterpoint to Roman propaganda and underscoring her embrace of traditional Egyptian religious roles. Other temple sites, such as those at Komombo and Philae, also contain inscriptions and carvings from her era, shedding light on her religious policies and her efforts to integrate into Egyptian culture. Artifact analysis has provided a wealth of new historical evidence. Coins minted during her reign, often bearing her image, offer insights into her appearance and her self-representation. While Roman coins often depicted her with harsh features, her own coinage presents a more idealized Hellenistic profile. Jewelry, everyday objects, and administrative papyri from the Ptolemaic period further illuminate the daily life, economic activities, and cultural practices of her time. The study of pottery, tools, and other material culture helps reconstruct the broader societal context of her rule. These archaeological findings collectively provide new historical evidence that challenges and enriches the traditional Roman-centric narratives. They offer a more nuanced understanding of Cleopatra as a powerful, intelligent, and culturally astute ruler who actively engaged with both Greek and Egyptian traditions. The physical remnants of her world underscore her status as a legitimate pharaoh and a formidable political figure, rather than merely a Roman mistress. Ongoing research continues to push the boundaries of our knowledge. Projects like the Search for Cleopatra's Tomb, led by archaeologists in various locations, represent the enduring quest to uncover more direct evidence of her life and death. The application of advanced technologies such as remote sensing and geophysical surveys promises to unlock further secrets from the sands and waters of Egypt, continually refining our understanding of this iconic queen and the vibrant world she inhabited. Major literary works range from meticulously researched historical novels to speculative fiction, each offering a distinct lens through which to view the last pharaoh. These different interpretations reflect not only the evolving understanding of her historical context, but also contemporary societal concerns and literary trends. Historical novels, in particular, have sought to humanize Cleopatra, moving beyond the two-dimensional stereotypes of the Roman propagandists and Hollywood. Authors like Margaret George in the Memoirs of Cleopatra and Colleen McCullough in her Masters of Rome series, where Cleopatra is a significant character, delve deeply into the political complexities of her reign, her intellectual prowess, and her emotional life. These novels often draw on archaeological discoveries and revised historical scholarship to present a more rounded and nuanced portrayal of a queen grappling with immense political pressure and personal challenges. They explore her as a master strategist, a polyglot, and a devoted mother, rather than solely a seductress. poetry and drama continue to find fertile ground in her narrative. While Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra remains the definitive dramatic interpretation, modern playwrights have adapted her story, often focusing on feminist themes or re-examining her agency in a patriarchal world. Poets, drawn to the epic scale of her life and her tragic end, continue to weave verses that explore themes of power, love, loss, and destiny. Contemporary adaptations of Cleopatra's story appear in various forms, including graphic novels, young adult fiction, and even genre fiction, such as fantasy or alternate history. These adaptations often experiment with different narrative styles and perspectives, sometimes placing her in entirely new contexts or exploring what-if scenarios. They reflect a desire to make her story relevant to new generations and to engage with her enduring appeal in imaginative ways. The enduring popularity of Cleopatra in modern literature stems from her unique position at the crossroads of empires, her legendary romances, and her dramatic downfall. She embodies themes of female power, political ambition, cultural clash, and tragic love, making her a compelling subject for exploration across diverse literary forms. Each author brings their own perspective, adding new layers to the rich tapestry of her legend and ensuring her continued presence in the collective literary imagination. From ancient Roman pantomimes to contemporary stage productions, her story has been told and retold, each rendition offering a unique interpretation of her character and her historical significance. Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, first performed around 1607, stands as the most famous and enduring stage production of her story. It portrays Cleopatra as a complex, volatile, and ultimately tragic figure, a queen of immense charisma, wit, and passion, whose infinite variety enthralls Antony and leads to their shared downfall. This play has been continuously revived and reinterpreted on stages worldwide, influencing countless subsequent dramatic portrayals. Beyond Shakespeare, many other playwrights have tackled her story. Dryden's All for Love, 1677, offered a neoclassical response to Shakespeare, focusing on the conflict between love and honor. In the 18th and 19th centuries, various melodramas and historical plays featured Cleopatra, often emphasizing her exoticism and romantic entanglements. Notable actresses have embodied Cleopatra, leaving their indelible mark on the role. Vivien Leigh, Elizabeth Taylor, though primarily known for the film, she was a stage actress, and Helen Mirren are just a few who have brought their talent to the part, each offering a distinct interpretation. The challenge of playing Cleopatra lies in balancing her regal power, her intellectual brilliance, her legendary charm, and her ultimate vulnerability. Actresses have explored different facets of her personality, some emphasizing her political acumen, others her seductive allure, and still others her tragic defiance. Different interpretations of Cleopatra in theatre reflect evolving social and political contexts. Early productions might have focused on her as a moralistic warning, while later ones, particularly in the 20th and 21st centuries, have often explored feminist themes, portraying her as a powerful woman navigating a patriarchal world or delving into the psychological complexities of her relationships. Modern adaptations sometimes experiment with setting, costume, and narrative structure, seeking to make her story resonate with contemporary audiences. The cultural impact of these theatrical representations is immense. They have played a crucial role in shaping public perception of Cleopatra, making her story accessible and emotionally engaging to generations of theatergoers. The stage allows for a direct, immediate connection with the audience, bringing the grandeur and tragedy of her life to vivid existence. Modern adaptations continue to reinterpret her legend, ensuring that Cleopatra remains a dynamic and relevant figure in the world of live performance, a testament to the timeless appeal of her extraordinary life. The earliest cinematic depictions date back to the silent era, reflecting the nascent film industry's fascination with epic historical subjects. Films like Cleopatra, 1917, starring Theda Bara, one of the original vamps, established a visual vocabulary of exoticism and seduction that would influence later portrayals, often focusing on her beauty and her power over men. However, it is Elizabeth Taylor's iconic portrayal in the 1963 epic Cleopatra that remains the most famous and culturally impactful. This film, renowned for its lavish sets, extravagant costumes, and colossal budget cemented many popular perceptions of Cleopatra. Taylor's performance, while often criticized for historical inaccuracies, presented a Cleopatra of undeniable glamour, fierce independence, and passionate intensity, deeply entangled with the powerful Roman figures of Rex Harrison's Caesar and Richard Burton's Antony. The film, despite its financial struggles, indelibly etched its image of Cleopatra into the global consciousness. Beyond the 1963 epic, other significant films have tackled her story. Caesar and Cleopatra 1945, starring Vivien Leigh, offered a more intellectual and witty interpretation based on George Bernard Shaw's play, focusing on her mentorship by Caesar. More recently, animated features and television series have also explored her life, often aiming for greater historical accuracy or presenting her story to younger audiences. Documentary treatments have played a crucial role in separating historical fact from cinematic fiction. These documentaries, often drawing on archaeological discoveries and scholarly research, aim to present a more accurate and nuanced understanding of Cleopatra as a political leader, a linguist, and a strategic thinker, challenging the romanticized and often prejudiced portrayals of Hollywood. They explore the complexities of her reign, her economic policies, and her cultural achievements, offering a corrective to the more sensationalized narratives. The influence of Cleopatra in film on popular culture is immense. Her image, often derived from these cinematic portrayals, has become synonymous with beauty, power, and exoticism. The lavish costumes and dramatic narratives have inspired fashion, music, and countless cultural references. Films have ensured that Cleopatra remains a globally recognized figure, even if the cinematic lens has often prioritized drama and romance over historical veracity, contributing significantly to her enduring legend in the collective imagination. One of the most enduring mysteries surrounding her is the exact cause of her death, and scientific analysis has contributed to medical theories about death. While the ass bite is the most famous account, some scholars have suggested other poisons or even a more elaborate method to ensure a swift and dignified end. Forensic analysis of ancient texts and toxicology studies, though limited by the absence of her remains, contribute to the ongoing debate about the precise mechanism of her suicide, scrutinizing the likelihood of an ass being successfully smuggled and its venom acting quickly enough to prevent intervention. Archaeological evidence, as discussed previously, provides a crucial foundation for scientific analysis. The study of the submerged ruins of Alexandria, using sonar, remote sensing, and advanced diving techniques, allows for the precise mapping and identification of architectural remains, giving us a clearer picture of her palace and city. The analysis of artifacts recovered from these sites, such as pottery, coins, and architectural fragments, employs scientific methods to determine their composition, origin, and dating, offering concrete data about Ptolemaic technology, trade networks, and daily life. Genetic studies, while not yet able to directly analyze Cleopatra's DNA due to the absence of her identified remains, are beginning to shed light on the broader Ptolemaic dynasty. For instance, DNA analysis of the mummified remains of her half-sister, Arsinoe IV, has provided insights into the family's ancestry, confirming their mixed Greek and possibly African heritage. As genetic technologies advance, future discoveries of Ptolemaic remains could potentially offer more direct information about Cleopatra's own genetic makeup and health, further refining our understanding of her physical characteristics and potential predispositions. Chemical analysis of artifacts, such as residues found in ancient vessels or on cosmetic tools, can reveal details about the substances used in her court. This might include analyzing pigments used in cosmetics, the composition of perfumes, or even identifying ingredients in ancient medicines. Such analyses provide tangible links to the material culture of her time, offering insights into Ptolemaic craftsmanship, trade, and daily practices. Modern research methods, encompassing a wide range of scientific disciplines, continue to push the boundaries of historical inquiry. From advanced dating techniques like radiocarbon dating, applied to organic materials, to the use of satellite imagery to identify potential archaeological sites, science is providing new tools to reconstruct Cleopatra's world with greater precision and detail. This interdisciplinary approach, combining historical scholarship with scientific rigor, is essential for moving beyond conjecture and building a more evidence-based understanding of one of history's most compelling figures. These perspectives seek to re-evaluate historical sources, challenging the entrenched Roman propaganda and highlighting her agency, intelligence, and political acumen in a deeply patriarchal world. One of the primary goals of feminist scholarship is the revaluation of historical sources, particularly those written by Roman authors like Plutarch, Cassius Dio, and Horace. Feminist historians critically analyze the biases inherent in these texts, recognizing that Roman writers had a vested interest in demonizing Cleopatra to legitimize Octavian's conquest and to portray Antony as having been led astray by a foreign woman. By deconstructing these narratives, feminist interpretations aim to uncover the real Cleopatra, not as a passive object of male desire, but as an active political subject. Gender role analysis is central to this approach. Feminist scholars examine the constraints and opportunities available to women in power during the Hellenistic and Roman periods. They highlight how Cleopatra, as a female ruler in a male-dominated world, had to navigate complex expectations and defy societal norms to assert her authority. Her extensive education, her fluency in multiple languages, her strategic alliances, and her direct involvement in military and economic policy are all seen as evidence of her exceptional capabilities, rather than being dismissed as mere instruments of seduction. Studies on power dynamics focus on how Cleopatra wielded power, not just through her relationships with Caesar and Antony, but through her own inherent authority as the Ptolemaic queen. They analyze her diplomatic skills, her ability to command loyalty from her subjects, both Greek and Egyptian, and her strategic use of religious identity as Isis incarnate to legitimize her rule. These interpretations emphasize that her power was multifaceted and rooted in her political genius, not solely in her romantic allure. Contemporary relevance is a key aspect of feminist interpretations. Cleopatra's story is seen as a powerful historical example for understanding issues of female leadership, gender stereotypes, and the challenges faced by women in positions of power today. She becomes a symbol of female strength, resilience, and strategic brilliance, inspiring discussions about how history often marginalizes or misrepresents powerful women. By reclaiming Cleopatra from the narratives of seduction and tragedy, feminist scholarship presents her as a complex, intelligent, and formidable ruler whose life offers valuable insights into gender, power, and politics throughout history. Her influence on leadership studies is significant, as her reign provides a compelling case study of a female monarch navigating extreme political pressures and external threats. She demonstrated exceptional resilience, adaptability, and strategic thinking, often making bold and unconventional decisions to preserve her kingdom's sovereignty. Her leadership style, characterized by intellectual acumen, linguistic prowess, and a deep understanding of both Greek and Egyptian cultures, offers a rich subject for analysis. Her diplomatic lessons are particularly noteworthy. Cleopatra was a master diplomat, capable of forging alliances with the most powerful figures of her age, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, through a combination of charisma, intelligence, and strategic negotiation. She understood the delicate balance between asserting her independence and accommodating the demands of a burgeoning superpower like Rome. Her ability to secure crucial Roman support, even while maintaining her distinct Egyptian identity, showcases her extraordinary skill in international relations. The study of power dynamics is central to understanding Cleopatra's political legacy. She operated in a world where power was constantly shifting, and her ability to identify and leverage sources of power, whether it was Egypt's immense wealth, its strategic location, her own intellectual capabilities, or the personal bonds she forged, was unparalleled. Her story illustrates how power is not merely about military might, but also about influence, resources, and the skillful manipulation of political and cultural narratives. Her life also offers crucial insights into gender in politics. As a female ruler in a deeply patriarchal society, Cleopatra defied expectations and challenged norms. Her ability to command respect, lead armies, and govern effectively demonstrates that gender was not a barrier to political leadership for her, even if it often invited misogynistic attacks from her Roman rivals. Her legacy prompts reflection on the challenges and opportunities faced by women in leadership roles throughout history and in contemporary politics. Modern parallels can be drawn from Cleopatra's political career, particularly in contexts of smaller nations navigating relations with global superpowers. Her strategies for maintaining autonomy, securing resources, and projecting influence in the face of overwhelming external power offer relevant lessons for contemporary states. Her ability to forge strong personal relationships with key international figures, while simultaneously strengthening her domestic base, remains a classic example of effective statecraft. Ultimately, Cleopatra's political legacy is one of a brilliant and tenacious ruler who, against all odds, fought to preserve her kingdom's independence, leaving behind a complex and enduring testament to the art of governance. She remains a powerful symbol, referenced across various facets of modern society, from high art to everyday consumer products. Modern references to Cleopatra abound in popular culture. Her name is synonymous with beauty, power, and exoticism, often invoked in discussions about strong female leaders, legendary romances, or ancient history. She appears in countless memes, internet discussions, and casual conversations, demonstrating her continued relevance in the collective consciousness. Her influence on fashion is particularly notable. The opulent costumes and elaborate jewelry depicted in films and artworks based on her life have inspired designers for generations. Elements of ancient Egyptian aesthetics, such as kohl-lined eyes, intricate headpieces, and flowing gowns, are frequently reinterpreted on runways and in mainstream fashion, often directly referencing Cleopatra's style. Her image evokes a sense of timeless glamour and regal elegance that continues to captivate the fashion world. In marketing and branding, Cleopatra's name and image are frequently utilized to evoke luxury, sophistication, and allure. Products ranging from cosmetics and perfumes to jewelry and even household items often bear her name or incorporate Egyptian motifs to convey a sense of ancient mystique and premium quality. Her association with wealth and beauty makes her an ideal figure for aspirational branding strategies. The tourism impact related to Cleopatra is immense. Her legend draws countless visitors to Egypt, particularly to Alexandria and other ancient sites associated with her life. Tourists seek to explore the places she ruled, to see the temples she commissioned, and to connect with the history of the last pharaoh. Her story is a powerful narrative that fuels interest in Egyptian archaeology and cultural heritage, contributing significantly to the nation's tourism industry. Across popular culture, Cleopatra's presence is undeniable. She is a recurring character in video games, comic books, television shows, and even music. From historical dramas to comedic parodies, her story is constantly being adapted and reinterpreted, reflecting contemporary concerns and artistic sensibilities. Her enduring appeal lies in her multifaceted persona. She is a queen, a lover, a warrior, a scholar, and a tragic figure, offering a rich tapestry of human experience that continues to resonate with audiences worldwide. This pervasive cultural presence ensures that Cleopatra remains a dynamic and relevant icon, continually reimagined and celebrated in the modern world. Perhaps the most significant and tantalizing of these is the missing tomb location. While ancient sources suggest that Cleopatra and Mark Antony were buried together in a magnificent tomb in Alexandria, its exact whereabouts remain unknown. Various theories propose its location within the submerged royal quarter, beneath modern Alexandria, or even in an as-yet undiscovered site outside the city. The search for this tomb continues to be one of the holy grails of archaeology, promising unprecedented insights into her final resting place and the funerary practices of the late Ptolemaic era. The fate of lost artifacts from Cleopatra's reign is another major mystery. The famous Library of Alexandria, though partially destroyed during Caesar's siege, also suffered further damage over centuries, and countless scrolls and treasures from the Ptolemaic period have vanished. What artifacts might have been buried with her, or what treasures were lost during the Roman conquest, remains a subject of speculation. Any discovery of personal effects or official documents from her court would be invaluable in shedding further light on her life and administration. Underwater sites, particularly off the coast of Alexandria, continue to hold immense potential for new discoveries. The submerged ruins of the royal quarter have already yielded significant finds, but vast areas remain unexplored due to the challenges of underwater archaeology. Further excavations could uncover more of Cleopatra's palace, temples, or even the remnants of her personal harbour, offering a more complete picture of the landscape she inhabited. The potential discoveries are vast. Unidentified Ptolemaic burials could, with advanced genetic analysis, potentially be linked to Cleopatra's family, offering insights into her lineage and physical characteristics. New papyri or inscriptions might surface, providing contemporary accounts of her reign from an Egyptian perspective, which could significantly counterbalance the Roman narratives. Every new find, no matter how small, has the potential to alter or refine our understanding of her world. Ongoing searches for her tomb and other significant sites are actively being conducted by various archaeological teams. Projects like those led by Dr. Kathleen Martinez, focusing on the Temple of Taposiris Magna, theorize that Cleopatra's tomb might be located outside Alexandria, aligning with certain ancient texts. These relentless searches, driven by the allure of solving one of history's great archaeological puzzles, ensure that Cleopatra remains at the forefront of modern archaeological endeavors, continually promising new revelations about her extraordinary life. The accuracy of sources is a constant point of contention. Historians grapple with the inherent biases of the primary Roman accounts, such as those by Plutarch, Cassius Dio, and Appian, who wrote decades or even centuries after Cleopatra's death, and were deeply influenced by Octavian's victorious narrative. Debates center on how to extract reliable historical information from these often hostile and moralizing texts, and how to balance them with the sparse but valuable Egyptian evidence, such as temple reliefs and papyri. Different interpretations of Cleopatra's motivations and actions are a direct result of these source limitations. Was she primarily a power-hungry monarch driven by ambition, a devoted mother seeking to secure her children's future, a brilliant strategist fighting for her kingdom's survival, or a charismatic lover whose passions shaped her destiny? Scholars often emphasize different facets of her personality and reign, leading to diverse portrayals that reflect the interpreter's own perspectives and methodologies. Scholarly controversies abound, ranging from the specifics of her appearance, was she beautiful by Roman standards, or was her charm primarily intellectual, to the true nature of her relationships with Caesar and Antony, were they genuine love affairs or purely political alliances, to the precise circumstances of her death. Even seemingly minor details, such as the type of snake used in her suicide, spark ongoing academic discussions, highlighting the meticulous nature of historical inquiry. The impact of new evidence, particularly from archaeological discoveries, continually reshapes these debates. The unearthing of new inscriptions, papyri, or architectural remains can either corroborate existing theories or challenge long-held assumptions, prompting historians to re-evaluate their interpretations. For example, the discovery of the Dendera relief, showing Cleopatra and Caesarin, provided crucial visual evidence of her role as a pharaoh, strengthening arguments for her Egyptian legitimacy. Current research continues to explore these historical debates from various angles, employing interdisciplinary approaches that combine classical philology, archaeology, numismatics, and even scientific analysis. Scholars are increasingly seeking to understand Cleopatra within her broader Hellenistic and Egyptian contexts, rather than solely through a Roman lens. This ongoing process of questioning, re-evaluating, and synthesizing information ensures that Cleopatra remains a vibrant subject of historical inquiry, continually inviting new perspectives and deeper understandings of her complex and compelling life. Her early life, marked by intense political intrigue and dynastic violence within the Alexandrian court, would have fostered a formidable sense of self-preservation and a keen understanding of human nature. Growing up amidst power struggles, witnessing the usurpations and assassinations of family members likely instilled in her a deep-seated ambition and a ruthless streak necessary for survival in such a volatile environment. Her leadership style appears to have been characterized by exceptional intelligence, adaptability, and a remarkable ability to inspire loyalty. As a polyglot and a highly educated ruler, she could engage with diverse populations and foreign dignitaries on their own terms, a skill that would have fostered trust and respect. Her capacity for strategic thinking, evident in her alliances with Caesar and Antony, her economic policies, and her military preparations, suggests a mind capable of complex long-term planning and tactical execution. She was not merely reactive but proactive, often anticipating threats and opportunities. Cleopatra's decision-making patterns reveal a pragmatic and often audacious approach. Her willingness to take calculated risks, such as having herself smuggled to Caesar in a rug or sailing with Antony to Actium, demonstrates a bold confidence in her own judgment and an understanding of high-stakes situations. She consistently prioritized the survival and independence of her kingdom, even when it meant making difficult choices or aligning with powerful, often dangerous Roman figures. Her ability to pivot and adapt to rapidly changing political landscapes, such as after Caesar's assassination, underscores her mental agility. Her relationship dynamics with Caesar and Antony are a subject of intense psychological interest. While often portrayed as purely romantic, these relationships were undoubtedly deeply complex, interwoven with political necessity, mutual respect, and intellectual connection. With Caesar, an older, established power, she likely found a mentor and protector while also asserting her own agency. With Antony, a charismatic but more volatile figure, she formed a partnership of equals, sharing ambition and vision. The personal bonds she forged were crucial to her political survival, suggesting a profound understanding of interpersonal influence and emotional intelligence. Modern psychological perspectives might view Cleopatra as a high-functioning individual with strong narcissistic traits, a common characteristic among powerful rulers, but also possessing remarkable resilience, emotional intelligence, and perhaps a degree of Machiavellian pragmatism. Her unwavering determination to maintain her sovereignty and her refusal to be paraded in a Roman triumph speak to an inner strength and a profound sense of self-worth. While we can never truly know her inner world, a psychological lens allows us to move beyond simplistic stereotypes and appreciate the formidable mental and emotional fortitude required to be Cleopatra. Her effective management of Egypt's resources, particularly the fertile Nile Delta, was paramount. She understood that the consistent and abundant production of grain was Egypt's primary source of wealth and its most powerful diplomatic tool. By ensuring efficient agricultural practices and maintaining the complex irrigation systems, she secured both the sustenance of her populace and a vital export commodity that fueled her treasury. Her influence on trade routes was significant. Alexandria, under her rule, continued to thrive as a premier port city, a nexus for commerce connecting the Mediterranean with the Red Sea, Africa, and beyond. Cleopatra actively promoted trade relationships, leveraging Egypt's position to facilitate the exchange of goods. Her fluency in multiple languages would have given her a distinct advantage in direct negotiations with merchants and envoys from various regions, fostering stronger commercial ties. She understood that a robust trade network was essential for generating revenue through customs duties and taxes, enriching the kingdom. Currency impact was another area of her economic attention. Earlier Ptolemaic rulers had often debased coinage to meet financial needs, leading to instability. Cleopatra, while also facing financial pressures, issued her own coinage, often bearing her image. This was not just a symbol of her rule, but an attempt to maintain a stable currency, which was crucial for facilitating trade and ensuring economic confidence within her kingdom. Lessons from her resource management strategies can be gleaned even today. Her ability to efficiently harness and distribute agricultural wealth, manage trade flows, and stabilize currency in a volatile geopolitical environment speaks to a pragmatic and effective economic leadership. She understood that economic power was intertwined with political power and that a prosperous kingdom was better equipped to defend its independence. The relevance of her economic policies in modern applications lies in her demonstration of how a strategically positioned nation, even one facing external threats, can leverage its natural resources and geographic advantages to maintain influence and prosperity. Her efforts to diversify trade, manage internal resources effectively, and stabilize currency offer historical insights into the challenges and opportunities of economic governance, highlighting the enduring importance of sound economic policy for national strength and sovereignty. While she did not personally lead legions into battle, her role in strategic planning and resource allocation was indispensable. Her battle tactics study highlights her pragmatic approach. During the Alexandrian War, she aided Caesar with crucial intelligence and logistical support, demonstrating an understanding of the importance of information and supply lines. In her later campaigns with Antony, she contributed a significant portion of the combined fleet, and provided vast resources, indicating her direct involvement in the overall strategic vision. She understood that military success depended on more than just brute force. It required careful planning, intelligence, and the effective deployment of resources. Her influence on naval warfare was particularly pronounced. Egypt's formidable fleet, developed and maintained under her direction, was a crucial asset. She understood that control of the seas was vital for protecting Egypt's trade routes, projecting power, and providing logistical support for land campaigns. The Egyptian ships, often larger and more heavily armed than Roman vessels, played a significant role in the naval engagements of the period, culminating in the Battle of Actium, where her fleet formed a substantial part of Antony's forces. Leadership lessons from Cleopatra's military involvement include her ability to inspire loyalty, particularly among her Egyptian forces, and her capacity for decisive action, even in the face of overwhelming odds. She was not a figurehead but an active participant in military councils, offering strategic advice and making critical decisions regarding troop deployments and naval operations. Strategic planning was a hallmark of her approach. She consistently sought to create and maintain powerful alliances, first with Caesar, then with Antony, recognizing that Egypt alone could not withstand the might of Rome. Her decisions regarding territorial grants and the establishment of client kingdoms in the east were part of a larger strategic vision to create a stable power bloc under her and Antony's influence, providing a buffer against external threats. Military innovations under Cleopatra were less about new weaponry and more about the astute application of existing technologies and resources. She leveraged Egypt's wealth to fund a powerful military, acquire the best equipment, and attract skilled commanders and mercenaries. Her ability to integrate her forces with those of her Roman allies and to manage the logistics of large-scale campaigns demonstrated a high level of military administrative competence. Modern military relevance can be drawn from her strategic use of alliances, her emphasis on naval power, and her comprehensive approach to resource management in military endeavors, all of which remain crucial elements of effective defense and power projection today. The Alexandrian buildings of her era continued to embody the cosmopolitan nature of the city. While the great monuments like the Pharaohs and the library were legacies from earlier Ptolemies, Cleopatra maintained and likely beautified the royal quarter, ensuring that the capital remained a dazzling display of power and culture. Accounts suggest her palace was opulent, filled with art and luxury, serving as both a residence and a center of governance. Her impact on temple designs is more distinctly visible. Unlike many of her Greek predecessors who largely focused on Hellenistic structures, Cleopatra actively patronized and participated in the construction and restoration of traditional Egyptian temples. The relief at the Temple of Dendera depicting her and Caesarion in pharaonic costume offering to the gods is a prime example of her commitment to Egyptian religious architecture. Other temples, such as those at Komombo and Philae, also bear inscriptions and carvings from her reign, showcasing a continuation of ancient Egyptian artistic and architectural traditions, often with subtle Hellenistic influences. These projects were not just about piety, they were a strategic move to legitimize her rule in the eyes of the native Egyptian population by aligning herself with their ancient religious heritage. Palace architecture, particularly in Alexandria, would have reflected the luxurious lifestyle of the Ptolemaic court. While specific archaeological remains are scarce, due to the city's modern overlay and seismic activity, it is clear that the royal residences were designed for comfort, ceremony, and security, incorporating elements of both Greek and Egyptian design. The use of lavish materials, intricate decorations, and extensive gardens would have been characteristic. Modern inspirations from Cleopatra's architectural influence often manifest in the broader fascination with ancient Egyptian and Hellenistic aesthetics. Elements like monumental scale, intricate carvings, and the symbolic use of animal and divine figures continue to inspire architects and designers. The enduring image of Alexandria as a city of intellectual and artistic splendor, even in its submerged state, owes much to the Ptolemaic legacy that Cleopatra upheld. Preservation efforts in modern Egypt and through underwater archaeology are crucial for understanding this architectural heritage. The ongoing work to document and protect the submerged ruins of Alexandria, along with the study of surviving temples, allows scholars to reconstruct the physical world Cleopatra inhabited and to appreciate the unique blend of cultures that defined her reign. Her architectural legacy is a testament to her strategic vision, recognizing that physical structures could serve as powerful symbols of legitimacy and cultural identity. Current archaeological projects, such as the ongoing search for her tomb at various sites across Egypt, remain a central focus. Teams using sophisticated geophysical surveys and remote sensing techniques are meticulously examining potential locations, like the Temple of Osiris Magna, hoping to unearth definitive evidence of her burial place. These projects promise to provide unprecedented insights into her final resting place and the funerary customs of her era. New technology applications are revolutionizing archaeological and historical research. Advanced imaging techniques, including 3D modeling and virtual reality, are allowing scholars to reconstruct ancient Alexandria and other Ptolemaic sites with remarkable accuracy, bringing Cleopatra's world to life. DNA analysis, as mentioned, holds the potential to identify Ptolemaic remains and shed light on the dynasty's genetic makeup. Chemical analysis of artifacts can reveal details about ancient materials, diet, and even health, offering tangible links to her time. These technological advancements provide powerful tools for extracting more information from existing evidence and for discovering new sites. Potential discoveries are vast and exciting. The continued exploration of underwater sites off Alexandria's coast could reveal more of Cleopatra's palace, harbor facilities, or even personal effects lost to the sea. The unearthing of new papyri in Egypt could provide contemporary administrative documents, letters, or literary works from her court, offering direct insights into her policies, her intellectual life, and the daily realities of her kingdom, largely free from Roman bias. Any such finds would be invaluable in refining our understanding of her reign. Research directions are increasingly interdisciplinary, moving beyond traditional historical and archaeological methods. Scholars are employing approaches from environmental studies to understand the impact of climate on ancient Egypt, from social history to examine the lives of ordinary Egyptians during her reign, and from gender studies to further deconstruct existing narratives about female power. There is a growing emphasis on understanding Cleopatra within her broader Hellenistic and Egyptian contexts, rather than solely through her interactions with Romans. Modern investigation methods are also focusing on digital humanities, creating vast databases of ancient texts, archaeological records, and visual materials, making it easier for scholars worldwide to collaborate and cross-reference information. This collaborative and technologically driven approach ensures that the study of Cleopatra will remain dynamic and innovative, continually pushing the boundaries of our knowledge and offering fresh perspectives on one of history's most compelling figures. Her reign, though ultimately ending in defeat and annexation, was a testament to extraordinary leadership, political acumen, and cultural sophistication. She was far more than the seductive queen of Roman propaganda. She was a polyglot, a scholar, a master strategist, and a devoted ruler who fought fiercely to preserve her kingdom's sovereignty and her dynastic legacy. Her story encapsulates the clash of empires, the complexities of power, and the enduring human struggle against overwhelming odds. Her cultural impact is immense and continues to resonate globally. As a symbol, she embodies beauty, power, exoticism, and tragic romance, inspiring countless works of literature, art, film, and fashion across centuries. From Shakespeare to Hollywood blockbusters, her image has been continually reinterpreted, reflecting the evolving cultural values and artistic sensibilities of each era. She remains a powerful icon of female leadership and strength, captivating imaginations and sparking debates about gender roles and historical representation. Evaluating her legacy requires a nuanced perspective, acknowledging both her remarkable achievements and the ultimate failure of her political ambitions. She revitalized Egypt's economy, embraced its ancient traditions, and forged alliances with the most powerful men in the world, all while maintaining her distinct identity as a pharaoh. Yet, despite her brilliance, she could not ultimately stem the tide of Roman expansion, and her death marked the end of an era, ushering in centuries of Roman rule over Egypt. Her legacy is thus one of both triumph and tragedy, a testament to her formidable will and the unforgiving nature of ancient geopolitics. The modern relevance of Cleopatra's story is profound. It offers timeless lessons on leadership, diplomacy, propaganda, and the challenges faced by powerful women in patriarchal societies. Her strategic use of culture and religion to legitimize her rule, her economic policies, and her military strategies all provide valuable case studies for understanding statecraft. She serves as a reminder that history is often written by the victors, and that critical analysis of sources is essential to uncover the full truth. Looking to future perspectives, the study of Cleopatra will undoubtedly continue to evolve. Ongoing archaeological discoveries, advancements in scientific analysis, and new theoretical frameworks will undoubtedly reveal further dimensions of her life and times. As society continues to grapple with issues of gender, power, and cultural identity, Cleopatra's story will remain a fertile ground for exploration, offering insights into the past that illuminate the present and inform our understanding of the future. Her legend, ever-changing and ever-compelling, ensures that the last pharaoh of Egypt will continue to fascinate, inspire, and provoke thought for generations to come. Her image, whether as a seductive temptress, a formidable queen, or a tragic heroine, has been continuously reinterpreted and reimagined across centuries, reflecting the evolving anxieties, desires, and perceptions of each era that has sought to understand her. From ancient Roman denunciations to Shakespearean tragedy, from operatic grandeur to Hollywood spectacle, the narrative of Cleopatra has proven remarkably adaptable, a testament to the potent symbolism she embodies. Consider, for instance, the immediate aftermath of her death, and the Roman propaganda machine that worked assiduously to shape her image. Octavian, in his consolidation of power, found it strategically advantageous to portray Cleopatra not as a legitimate ruler of a powerful kingdom, but as an orientalized seductress, a dangerous foreign influence who had corrupted the virtuous Roman general Mark Antony. This narrative served to legitimize his conquest of Egypt and present his victory as a triumph of Roman order over Eastern decadence. This early, politically motivated characterization laid the groundwork for many subsequent interpretations, casting a long shadow over her true political acumen and the complexities of her reign. The Roman poets like Horace and Virgil further cemented this image, depicting her as a threat to Roman morality and stability, a queen whose ambition was driven by lust rather than strategic foresight. This deliberate distortion of her character, while effective in its time, has required generations of scholarship to unravel, revealing the intricate layers of political maneuvering and cultural bias embedded within historical accounts. Moving into the medieval period, the perception of Cleopatra underwent another transformation, often viewed through the lens of Christian morality. Her story became a cautionary tale of earthly indulgence and pagan excess, reinforcing prevailing religious doctrines. While direct engagement with her historical figure might have been less prevalent than in classical antiquity, the themes associated with her, power, temptation, and tragic downfall, resonated within the broader moral frameworks of the time. Her image, though perhaps less frequently depicted, continued to serve as a symbol, albeit one refracted through a different cultural and intellectual prism. The Renaissance, with its renewed interest in classical antiquity, brought Cleopatra back into sharper focus. Artists and writers, drawing inspiration from ancient texts, began to explore her story with a fresh perspective. Though often still influenced by the Roman narratives, Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, perhaps the most iconic literary portrayal, is a monumental work that captures the dramatic intensity of her life and her relationship with Antony. Shakespeare, while drawing on Plutarch's Lives, imbues Cleopatra with a complexity that transcends simple caricature. He presents her as a vibrant, intelligent, and deeply passionate woman, a queen whose love and ambition are inextricably intertwined. Her famous lines, "Age cannot wither her, nor custom stale her infinite variety," speak to the enduring fascination she holds, acknowledging the multifaceted nature of her appeal. This play, performed countless times and adapted into various media, has profoundly shaped the modern understanding of Cleopatra, offering a nuanced portrait that balances her political prowess with her undeniable personal charisma. The operatic stage further amplified Cleopatra's dramatic potential. Composers like Handel and Massenet, among others, found in her story a rich tapestry of emotion, conflict, and grandeur. Operas such as Handel's Giulio Cesare in Egitto present a powerful and often sympathetic Cleopatra, showcasing her intelligence and strategic thinking alongside her romantic entanglements. The spectacle of opera, with its elaborate sets, costumes, and soaring arias, provided an ideal medium to convey the opulence of the Ptolemaic court and the high stakes of her political machinations. These musical interpretations, while perhaps taking artistic liberties, contributed significantly to solidifying her image as a figure of both immense power and profound tragedy. The advent of cinema in the 20th century provided an unprecedented platform for bringing Cleopatra's story to a global audience. Early silent films such as Theodora's 1917 portrayal established a visual archetype of the seductive and exotic queen. However, it was Cecil B. DeMille's 1934 film, starring Claudette Colbert and especially Joseph L. Mankiewicz's epic 1963 production Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor, that indelibly etched her image into the collective consciousness. The 1963 film, a lavish and monumental undertaking, became synonymous with spectacle, controversy, and excess. Elizabeth Taylor's portrayal, with its stunning costumes and dramatic intensity, cemented the image of Cleopatra as a figure of unparalleled beauty, power, and ultimately, tragic romance. While historically inaccurate in many details, the film's immense cultural impact cannot be overstated. It solidified the notion of Cleopatra as the ultimate femme fatale, a woman capable of captivating the most powerful men of her age, and whose story unfolded against a backdrop of unimaginable wealth and political intrigue. The film, despite its flaws, brought the grandeur of ancient Egypt and the drama of Cleopatra's life to millions, shaping perceptions for generations. Beyond these major artistic interpretations, Cleopatra has continued to inspire countless other works across various media. She appears in novels, poems, paintings, sculptures, and even video games. Each new iteration adds another layer to her multifaceted legacy, reflecting the ongoing societal dialogue about power, gender, and cultural identity. For example, contemporary feminist scholarship has re-examined Cleopatra's story, challenging the traditional Roman narratives that often reduced her to a mere seductress. These modern interpretations seek to reclaim her agency, highlighting her political shrewdness, her intellectual prowess, and her determination to preserve her kingdom's independence. They analyze her use of propaganda, her diplomatic skills, and her ability to navigate a male-dominated political landscape, often against overwhelming odds. This re-evaluation underscores the idea that history is not static, but rather a dynamic field of inquiry, constantly being reinterpreted through new lenses and perspectives. The academic study of Cleopatra continues to evolve, benefiting from advancements in archaeology, papyrology, and forensic science. New archaeological discoveries in Egypt, such as potential sites related to her palaces or tombs, could offer unprecedented insights into her daily life, her court, and the material culture of her time. The ongoing decipherment and analysis of ancient texts, including newly discovered papyri, can provide fresh perspectives on her policies, her relationships, and the broader political and economic context of her reign. Furthermore, advancements in scientific analysis, such as the study of ancient DNA or isotopic analysis of skeletal remains, though speculative in Cleopatra's case, given the lack of definitive remains, illustrate the potential for future breakthroughs in understanding historical figures. These scientific approaches, when combined with traditional historical and philological methods, promise to paint an increasingly detailed and accurate picture of Cleopatra, moving beyond the myths and legends to reveal the complex historical figure beneath. The enduring relevance of Cleopatra also lies in her ability to serve as a powerful lens through which to examine contemporary issues. Her story, with its themes of female leadership, cultural conflict, and the struggle for national sovereignty, resonates deeply in a world grappling with similar challenges. As societies continue to debate the role of women in leadership, Cleopatra's example, both as a successful ruler and as a target of gendered criticism, offers valuable historical context. Her strategic alliances with powerful Roman figures and her ultimate failure to withstand the might of the Roman Empire provide a compelling case study in international relations and the dynamics of imperial expansion. The cultural clash between Egypt and Rome, vividly portrayed in her story, offers insights into the complexities of cultural exchange and identity in a globalized world. Moreover, Cleopatra's story serves as a potent reminder of the constructed nature of historical narratives. The sheer volume of conflicting accounts and interpretations surrounding her life underscores the critical importance of source analysis and the recognition of bias in historical writing. Understanding how her image has been manipulated and reinterpreted across centuries allows us to better understand how other historical figures and events are presented, and encourages a more critical engagement with historical discourse in general. She is a testament to the fact that history is not merely a collection of facts, but a continuous process of interpretation, debate, and discovery. In conclusion, the legend of Cleopatra, ever-changing and ever-compelling, ensures that the last pharaoh of Egypt will continue to fascinate, inspire, and provoke thought for generations to come. Her story is a rich tapestry woven from history, myth, and artistic imagination, offering endless avenues for exploration and reinterpretation. She remains a powerful symbol, a historical figure whose life continues to illuminate the complexities of power, gender, culture, and the enduring human quest for meaning and legacy. Her reign, though ultimately ending in tragedy, left an indelible mark on the course of history and continues to captivate the human imagination, ensuring her place as one of the most iconic figures of all time. The very act of engaging with her story, whether through academic research, artistic creation, or popular consumption, is an act of continuing her legacy, of keeping her memory vibrant and relevant in the modern world. Every new book, every new film, every new piece of scholarship contributes to this ongoing conversation, enriching our understanding not only of Cleopatra, but of ourselves and the world we inhabit. The very act of engaging with her story, whether through academic research, artistic creation, or popular consumption, is an act of continuing her legacy, of keeping her memory vibrant and relevant in the modern world. Every new book, every new film, every new piece of scholarship contributes to this ongoing conversation, enriching our understanding not only of Cleopatra, but of ourselves and the world we inhabit. Consider for a moment the sheer volume of artistic interpretations she has inspired across centuries and media, from ancient Roman frescoes depicting her as a seductive foreign queen to Renaissance paintings portraying her suicide with an asp. Cleopatra's image has been constantly reshaped to reflect the prevailing cultural anxieties and aspirations of each era. In the Elizabethan era, Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra presented her as a woman of immense passion and political cunning, whose love affair with Mark Antony ultimately led to their downfall, a narrative that resonated deeply with the dramatic sensibilities of the time. This play, in particular, solidified many of the archetypes associated with her: the irresistible temptress, the tragic queen, the embodiment of exotic allure. Moving into the 18th and 19th centuries, the fascination with ancient Egypt intensified, fueled by archaeological discoveries and colonial ambitions. Cleopatra became a central figure in this Orientalist gaze, often depicted with a blend of admiration for her power and a subtle condemnation of her perceived moral transgressions. Think of Théophile Gautier's novel, Une Nuit de Cléopâtre, which romanticized her decadent court and her captivating beauty, yet still framed her within a European understanding of exoticism. The Victorian era, with its rigid social codes, found a particular fascination in Cleopatra's defiance of conventional femininity, albeit often through a lens of moralizing judgment. She was both admired for her strength and simultaneously used as a cautionary tale of female ambition unchecked. This paradoxical view speaks volumes about the societal tensions of the time regarding women in power. The advent of cinema brought Cleopatra to life in an entirely new dimension, allowing for grand spectacles and the portrayal of her lavish lifestyle on an unprecedented scale. The silent film era saw numerous actresses take on the role, often emphasizing her beauty and the dramatic arc of her love affairs. However, it was the 1934 film starring Claudette Colbert, and even more famously the 1963 epic with Elizabeth Taylor, that truly cemented her image in the popular consciousness. Elizabeth Taylor's portrayal, with its exorbitant costumes and sets, became synonymous with the character for generations, defining what many people imagined Cleopatra to look like and how she would behave. This film, despite its historical inaccuracies, contributed significantly to the myth-making surrounding her, focusing on the romantic tragedy and the opulent spectacle, rather than the intricate political maneuvering that defined much of her reign. It also inadvertently highlighted the enduring power of Hollywood to shape historical narratives and public perception. Beyond the silver screen, Cleopatra has continued to inspire literature, opera, and even fashion. Her iconic silhouette, her distinctive makeup, and the imagery of the asp have all been reinterpreted countless times, becoming enduring symbols in their own right. Her story has been used to explore themes of love, loss, power, betrayal, and the clash of cultures. Each new artistic endeavor, whether a scholarly biography or a speculative fiction novel, adds another layer to her already complex persona, revealing new facets of her character and her impact. It is a testament to her enduring appeal that she continues to be a fertile ground for creative exploration, demonstrating how historical figures can transcend their own time and become a canvas for contemporary concerns and interpretations. The academic world, too, plays a crucial role in perpetuating and re-evaluating Cleopatra's legacy. Historians and Egyptologists continuously unearth new evidence, re-examine ancient texts, and challenge long-held assumptions about her life and reign. Modern scholarship often seeks to move beyond the sensationalized narratives, attempting to reconstruct a more nuanced and historically accurate portrait of the Queen. This involves analyzing inscriptions, examining coinage, and reinterpreting the biases present in the primary sources, which were largely written by her Roman adversaries. For instance, recent archaeological findings in Alexandria and surrounding areas have shed new light on the city's grandeur during her time and the sophistication of her court. The ongoing search for her tomb, though yet unsuccessful, keeps her name in the headlines and fuels public interest in ancient Egypt and its most famous queen. These scholarly pursuits are vital in separating the historical figure from the mythical construct, even while acknowledging that the myth itself has become an integral part of her legacy. Furthermore, Cleopatra's story offers a unique lens through which to examine gender and power in the ancient world. As a female ruler in a patriarchal society, she navigated complex political landscapes with remarkable skill and determination. Her ability to command armies, negotiate treaties, and maintain her throne against formidable opposition challenges conventional notions of female leadership in antiquity. She was not merely a figurehead, she was an active and assertive political agent who wielded considerable influence. Her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, often sensationalized as purely romantic entanglements, were in fact sophisticated political alliances, carefully calculated to secure her power and protect her kingdom. Understanding these dynamics requires moving beyond the simplistic narratives of seduction and recognizing her as a shrewd and pragmatic stateswoman. This re-evaluation of her political acumen has been a significant contribution of feminist scholarship, which seeks to reclaim her agency and highlight her achievements as a ruler. Her multicultural identity also contributes to her enduring relevance. As a Ptolemaic queen, she was a descendant of Macedonian Greek generals, yet she embraced Egyptian culture, famously learning the Egyptian language and participating in its religious rituals. This fusion of Greek and Egyptian traditions made her a unique figure, bridging two significant cultural spheres. Her ability to navigate and leverage these different identities speaks to a sophisticated understanding of cultural diplomacy and a willingness to adapt for political advantage. In an increasingly globalized world, her story resonates as an example of cultural exchange and the complexities of identity formation. She represented a synthesis of East and West, a bridge between different worlds, making her a fascinating subject for discussions on cultural hybridity and the dynamics of imperial power. The very act of remembering Cleopatra, of telling her story again and again, is a form of cultural preservation. It ensures that the rich tapestry of ancient history, with all its complexities and contradictions, remains alive and accessible. She is a gateway for many to explore, not only ancient Egypt and Rome, but also broader themes of human ambition, love, and the relentless pursuit of power. Her narrative serves as a constant reminder that history is not a static collection of facts, but a dynamic and ever-evolving conversation, shaped by those who tell and retell its tales. Each generation finds something new in her story, something that speaks to their own experiences and concerns, which is precisely why her legacy continues to thrive. The power of Cleopatra's story lies not just in what she did, but in what she represents. She is a symbol of female power and independence, a figure who defied expectations and left an indelible mark on history. She is also a symbol of tragedy, of the fleeting nature of power and the devastating consequences of political conflict. Her death, often depicted as a deliberate act of defiance against Roman subjugation, cemented her status as a legendary figure. The image of her choosing death over being paraded as a captive in a Roman triumph is a powerful testament to her pride and her unwavering commitment to her own dignity and that of her kingdom. This dramatic conclusion to her life narrative has captivated audiences for millennia, transforming her into a martyr for her cause, a queen who chose her own fate rather than succumbing to the will of her conquerors. Furthermore, her reign marks a pivotal moment in world history, the end of the Hellenistic period and the rise of the Roman Empire. Her defeat at the Battle of Actium and subsequent death signaled the definitive end of independent pharaonic rule in Egypt, transforming it into a Roman province. This transition had profound and lasting consequences for the political and cultural landscape of the Mediterranean world. Thus, her personal story is inextricably linked to monumental geopolitical shifts, making her a crucial figure in understanding the broader sweep of ancient history. She was not just a queen, but a catalyst for change, a participant in the grand drama of empire building and collapse. The mystique surrounding Cleopatra is also fueled by the scarcity of truly objective contemporary accounts. Most of what we know comes from Roman sources, largely written by her enemies, which often portrayed her in a negative light, emphasizing her seductive nature and political ambition as vices rather than strengths. This deliberate character assassination by Roman propagandists, particularly by figures like Octavian and his allies, aimed to discredit her and legitimize their conquest of Egypt. Yet, even within these biased accounts, her intelligence, charm, and strategic prowess shine through. The very act of attempting to discern the historical Cleopatra from the Roman caricature is an ongoing intellectual exercise that keeps her story alive and invites critical engagement. This gap in reliable information allows for endless speculation and reinterpretation, contributing to her enigmatic allure. The geographical context of her rule, centered in Alexandria, a vibrant intellectual and cultural hub of the ancient world, further adds to her legend. Alexandria was a city of unparalleled libraries, scientific advancements, and artistic innovation. Cleopatra herself was educated in this rich environment, fluent in multiple languages, and reportedly well-versed in philosophy and mathematics. This intellectual background often gets overshadowed by the focus on her romantic life, but it was undoubtedly a crucial component of her ability to govern and command respect. Her court was a center of learning and diplomacy, attracting scholars and dignitaries from across the known world. Understanding her within this Alexandrian context helps to paint a more complete picture of a queen who was not only beautiful and charming, but also intellectually formidable. Her influence extends even into modern political discourse. When discussing powerful female leaders or the complexities of international relations, Cleopatra's name often surfaces as a historical precedent or a cautionary tale. Her story provides a rich case study for examining the intersection of personal relationships and statecraft, the challenges of maintaining sovereignty in the face of imperial expansion, and the enduring power of propaganda. She remains a touchstone for discussions about leadership, gender roles, and the often unforgiving nature of power. This continued relevance in contemporary conversations demonstrates how historical figures can transcend their time and offer insights into ongoing human dilemmas. Ultimately, Cleopatra's enduring legacy is a testament to the power of narrative. Her life, a blend of historical fact and legendary embellishment, has been continually reinterpreted and reimagined, ensuring her immortality in the collective consciousness. She is a figure who invites fascination, debate, and introspection. She challenges us to look beyond simplistic labels and to grapple with the complexities of human motivation and historical forces. Her story reminds us that history is not just about dates and events, but about the lives of individuals who shaped those events and whose stories continue to resonate across the millennia. The ongoing engagement with Cleopatra's life and times is not merely an academic exercise, it is an exploration of universal human themes that continue to captivate and provoke thought for generations to come. Her story is a rich tapestry woven from history, myth, and artistic imagination, offering endless avenues for exploration and reinterpretation. She remains a powerful symbol, a historical figure whose life continues to illuminate the complexities of power, gender, culture, and the enduring human quest for meaning and legacy. Her reign, though ultimately ending in tragedy, left an indelible mark on the course of history and continues to captivate the human imagination, ensuring her place as one of the most iconic figures of all time. The very act of engaging with her story, whether through academic research, artistic creation, or popular consumption, is an act of continuing her legacy, of keeping her memory vibrant and relevant in the modern world. Every new book, every new film, every new piece of scholarship contributes to this ongoing conversation, enriching our understanding not only of Cleopatra, but of ourselves and the world we inhabit. The fascination with Cleopatra is not merely a matter of historical curiosity, it delves into the fundamental questions of human nature and societal structures. Her story serves as a powerful mirror reflecting our own aspirations, fears, and prejudices. For instance, the enduring debate over her physical appearance, was she truly beautiful, or was her allure primarily intelligent and charismatic? This question, often posed in popular culture, speaks to our societal obsession with beauty and its perceived connection to power and influence. While ancient sources offer conflicting descriptions, the emphasis placed on her captivating presence, her voice, and her intellect suggests that her charm extended far beyond conventional attractiveness. She possessed a magnetic personality, a sharp mind, and a keen understanding of human psychology, which she masterfully employed in her political dealings and personal relationships. This ability to captivate and persuade, regardless of her exact facial features, is a testament to a different kind of power, one rooted in intellect and charisma rather than mere physical aesthetics. Moreover, her strategic use of propaganda and symbolism is a subject of continuous study. Cleopatra understood the power of image and public perception long before the modern era of mass media. She carefully crafted her public persona, associating herself with Egyptian deities like Isis, presenting herself as a divine ruler to legitimize her claim to the throne and rally her people. Her coinage often depicted her with divine attributes, and she participated in elaborate religious ceremonies designed to reinforce her sacred status. This deliberate manipulation of religious and cultural symbols was a sophisticated political tool, demonstrating her astute understanding of governance and her ability to leverage traditional beliefs for her own ends. The Roman propaganda against her, which sought to portray her as a decadent foreign temptress, was a direct response to her own effective use of such strategies, highlighting the fierce ideological battle waged for public opinion. The economic implications of her reign also warrant deeper exploration. Egypt, under Cleopatra, was a wealthy kingdom, possessing abundant agricultural resources, particularly grain, which was vital for feeding the Roman populace. Her control over these resources gave her significant leverage in her dealings with Rome. The vast wealth of Egypt was not merely a backdrop for her lavish lifestyle, it was a fundamental component of her political power, enabling her to maintain armies, fund diplomatic initiatives, and adorn her capital, Alexandria, with splendor. Understanding the economic backbone of her kingdom is crucial to appreciating the geopolitical significance of her alliances and conflicts. The Roman desire to control Egypt's resources was a major driver behind their expansionist policies, and Cleopatra's efforts to protect her kingdom's economic independence were central to her struggle for sovereignty. Her role as a mother, particularly to Caesarion, the son she claimed to have had with Julius Caesar, adds another layer of human drama and political complexity to her story. Caesarion represented the potential continuation of both the Ptolemaic dynasty and a powerful Greco-Roman lineage. His existence was a direct challenge to Octavian's claim as Caesar's sole heir, making him a significant pawn in the power struggles after Caesar's assassination. Cleopatra's efforts to secure Caesar's future and protect his inheritance were undoubtedly a driving force behind many of her political decisions. The tragic fate of Caesarion, executed by Octavian, underscores the brutal realities of ancient power politics and the ruthless elimination of potential rivals. This aspect of her life highlights the personal stakes involved in her political maneuvering, revealing her not just as a queen, but as a mother fighting for her child's destiny. The architectural and urban landscape of Alexandria during her reign also merits consideration. While much of ancient Alexandria lies submerged or buried beneath modern structures, historical accounts and archaeological fragments paint a picture of a magnificent city. The famous Library of Alexandria, the Pharaoh's Lighthouse, and the Royal Quarter were marvels of the ancient world. Cleopatra's court was not merely a political center but also a hub of intellectual and artistic patronage. She inherited a city that was a beacon of knowledge and culture, and she continued to foster this legacy. Imagining her moving through these grand spaces surrounded by scholars, artists, and diplomats helps to contextualize her rule within a flourishing intellectual and cosmopolitan environment. The city itself, a melting pot of cultures, reflected her own complex identity and the diverse influences that shaped her reign. Furthermore, the very concept of tragedy in her story is open to interpretation. Was her downfall inevitable? given the relentless expansion of Roman power? Or were there alternative paths she could have taken? This question invites speculation and critical analysis of historical contingency. Some argue that her alliance with Mark Antony, while initially promising, ultimately sealed her fate by aligning her with the losing side in the Roman civil war. Others might contend that given the overwhelming military might of Rome, her efforts to preserve Egyptian independence were always an uphill battle, and her ultimate defeat was a foregone conclusion. Exploring these different perspectives allows for a deeper understanding of the forces at play and the limitations faced by even the most powerful rulers in an era of imperial conquest. Her tragedy, therefore, becomes a lens through which to examine broader historical patterns of empire and resistance. The impact of her story on the development of feminist thought is also noteworthy. In different eras, Cleopatra has been held up as both a positive and negative example of female power. Some feminist scholars have reclaimed her as a symbol of female agency and political acumen, highlighting her ability to thrive in a male-dominated world. Others have critiqued the ways in which her story has been sexualized and sensationalized, arguing that this often overshadows her genuine political achievements. This ongoing dialogue reflects the complexities of interpreting historical figures through a contemporary lens and the challenges of reconciling historical realities with modern ideals. Regardless of the specific interpretation, her presence in these discussions underscores her enduring relevance to conversations about gender, power, and representation. Finally, the sheer volume of material dedicated to Cleopatra across different forms of media, from scholarly articles to popular documentaries, from classical plays to graphic novels, demonstrates an insatiable human desire to understand and connect with compelling historical figures. Each new iteration of her story, whether it seeks to debunk myths or embrace them, contributes to a living, breathing narrative that continues to evolve. She is not a static figure confined to dusty history books, but a dynamic presence in our cultural landscape, forever being reinterpreted, reevaluated, and reimagined. This continuous engagement ensures that Cleopatra's legacy, far from fading into obscurity, remains as vibrant and captivating today as it was in the ancient world. Her story is a testament to the enduring power of human drama, political intrigue, and the timeless allure of a queen who dared to defy an empire, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of history and the collective imagination. Her life continues to serve as a rich source of inspiration and contemplation, reminding us that the echoes of the past can profoundly shape our understanding of the present and our visions for the future. Each new iteration of her story, whether it seeks to debunk myths or embrace them, contributes to a living, breathing narrative that continues to evolve. She is not a static figure confined to dusty history books, but a dynamic presence in our cultural landscape, forever being reinterpreted, reevaluated, and reimagined. This continuous engagement ensures that Cleopatra's legacy, far from fading into obscurity, remains as vibrant and captivating today as it was in the ancient world. Her story is a testament to the enduring power of human drama, political intrigue, and the timeless allure of a queen who dared to defy an empire, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of history and the collective imagination. Her life continues to serve as a rich source of inspiration and contemplation, reminding us that the echoes of the past can profoundly shape our understanding of the present and our visions for the future. The fascination with Cleopatra extends beyond mere historical curiosity, delving into the very essence of power, gender, and perception throughout the ages. From ancient Roman propaganda that painted her as a dangerous temptress, a foreign threat to Roman virtue, to the romanticized portrayals of Shakespeare, her image has been a mirror reflecting the anxieties and aspirations of different eras. The Romans, particularly Octavian and his propagandists, meticulously crafted a narrative that stripped Cleopatra of her political acumen and agency, reducing her to an exotic seductress who corrupted noble Roman men. This deliberate dehumanization served a vital purpose to justify the conquest of Egypt and consolidate Octavian's power by demonizing his opponents. They understood the persuasive power of narrative, and Cleopatra, with her foreignness and undeniable charisma, provided a perfect canvas for their political machinations. Moving forward to the Renaissance, a period marked by a renewed interest in classical antiquity, Cleopatra began to regain some of her lost complexity, though often still viewed through a lens of tragic romance. Playwrights and poets inspired by Plutarch's accounts saw in her a figure of immense passion and ambition, a woman who dared to challenge the patriarchal norms of her time. Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra stands as a monumental example, transforming her into a character of unparalleled dramatic depth, a queen whose love and ambition are intertwined with the fate of empires. Here, she is not merely a seductress but a sovereign, a strategist, and a woman capable of profound love and despair. The play's enduring popularity speaks volumes about the human desire to see beyond simplified caricatures and explore the multifaceted nature of historical figures. The 19th century, with its burgeoning field of Egyptology and the romantic allure of the Orient, reignited a fervent interest in Cleopatra. Victorian artists and writers, captivated by the exoticism of ancient Egypt, often depicted her in lavish, opulent settings, emphasizing her beauty and her tragic end. This period saw a proliferation of paintings, poems, and novels that romanticized her story, often focusing on her love affairs with Caesar and Antony as epic tales of star-crossed lovers. While these interpretations sometimes leaned into stereotypes of Eastern sensuality, they also contributed to solidifying her image as a legendary figure whose life was intertwined with monumental historical events. The discovery of ancient artifacts and the deciphering of hieroglyphs only added to the mystique, offering tantalizing glimpses into the world she inhabited. The advent of cinema in the 20th century provided a new and powerful medium for reimagining Cleopatra. The silver screen, with its ability to create grand spectacles, transformed her into an iconic figure of glamour and power. Actresses like Theda Bara, Claudette Colbert, and Elizabeth Taylor each brought their own interpretations to the role, shaping public perception in profound ways. Theda Bara's silent film portrayal in 1917 established the archetype of the vamp, a dangerous and alluring woman. Claudette Colbert's 1934 rendition, while still emphasizing her beauty, also hinted at her intelligence and political shrewdness. However, it was Elizabeth Taylor's 1963 epic Cleopatra that cemented her image in popular culture as the ultimate queen, a woman of dazzling beauty, immense power, and tragic destiny. The film's lavish production, its scandalous behind-the-scenes romance, and Taylor's iconic performance ensured that Cleopatra remained a household name, a symbol of cinematic grandeur and historical intrigue. These cinematic interpretations, while often taking liberties with historical accuracy for dramatic effect, played a crucial role in keeping her story alive and accessible to a global audience, allowing generations to engage with her narrative on an emotional and visual level. In contemporary times, the re-evaluation of Cleopatra continues, often with a focus on reclaiming her agency and challenging the patriarchal narratives that have historically defined her. Modern historians and scholars are increasingly looking beyond the romanticized and propagandistic accounts to understand her as a shrewd and capable ruler, a polyglot, and a diplomat who skillfully navigated the treacherous political landscape of her era. They emphasize her Ptolemaic heritage, her mastery of several languages, including Egyptian, and her strategic alliances as evidence of her intellectual prowess and political acumen. There's a growing effort to disentangle the historical Cleopatra from the layers of myth and legend that have accumulated over 2 millennia to understand her motivations, her challenges, and her accomplishments on her own terms. This ongoing re-evaluation is not merely an academic exercise, it reflects a broader cultural shift towards questioning established narratives and giving voice to historically marginalized figures, particularly women in positions of power. Cleopatra's story, viewed through this contemporary lens, becomes a powerful testament to female leadership and resilience in a world dominated by men. Her ability to command respect from figures like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, to forge alliances, and to maintain the independence of Egypt for as long as she did, speaks volumes about her extraordinary capabilities. She was not simply a pawn in the games of powerful Roman men, but an active participant, a player in her own right who understood the stakes and played them with remarkable skill and courage. The very controversies surrounding her race and appearance in recent adaptations further underscore her enduring cultural significance. These debates, while sometimes heated, highlight the desire of different communities to see themselves reflected in historical figures and to challenge ingrained biases in historical portrayal. They demonstrate that Cleopatra is not a distant, embalmed figure, but a living, breathing idea, a canvas onto which contemporary societal anxieties and aspirations are projected. Her identity, far from being static, remains fluid and open to interpretation, making her a relevant and resonant figure in discussions about cultural representation and historical accuracy. Furthermore, Cleopatra's story continues to inspire in myriad forms of popular culture, from video games and graphic novels to fashion and music. Her image is invoked to signify power, beauty, and mystery, a shorthand for a certain kind of enduring, enigmatic strength. Artists and creators across various mediums continue to find fertile ground in her life and legend, drawing on her dramatic story, her relationships, and her ultimate downfall to explore themes of ambition, love, betrayal, and destiny. This constant reinvention ensures that she remains a protagonist in our collective imagination, a figure whose narrative is continually being written and rewritten, adapted and reinterpreted for new audiences and new generations. The magnetic pull of her narrative also lies in its universal themes. Her story is one of love and loss, power and vulnerability, triumph and tragedy. It speaks to the human condition, to the complexities of political maneuvering, and to the eternal struggle between individual will and the forces of history. The dramatic arc of her life, from her ascent to the throne to her ultimate defeat and suicide, is a narrative masterpiece, filled with moments of high drama, impossible choices, and profound emotional resonance. It is a story that transcends its ancient setting, offering insights into the timeless dynamics of human relationships and the relentless pursuit of power. Her strategic brilliance, often overshadowed by the focus on her romantic entanglements, is another key aspect of her enduring appeal. Cleopatra was a ruler who understood the importance of diplomacy, propaganda, and military strategy. She was not afraid to lead her armies, to engage in complex negotiations, and to use every tool at her disposal to protect her kingdom. Her ability to speak multiple languages, to charm and persuade, and to command loyalty from her subjects and allies alike, speaks to a formidable intellect and a powerful personality. She was a queen who understood the intricate dance of power and played it with a skill that few of her contemporaries, male or female, could match. The mystery surrounding her death, though widely believed to be by asp, adds another layer to her mystique. The image of a queen choosing her own demise, rather than suffering the humiliation of being paraded as a captive in Rome, is a powerful one, solidifying her image as a defiant and indomitable spirit. This final act of defiance, whether entirely factual or embellished by legend, serves as a poignant conclusion to a life lived on her own terms, a final assertion of control in a world that sought to strip it from her. It is a moment that has resonated through the centuries, inspiring countless artistic and literary interpretations that grapple with themes of honor, courage, and self-determination. Ultimately, Cleopatra's enduring legacy is a testament to the power of narrative itself. Her story has been told and retold, reshaped and reinterpreted, reflecting the changing values and perspectives of each successive era. She is a figure who defies easy categorization, a complex and contradictory queen whose life continues to provoke thought, inspire art, and challenge our understanding of history. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that history is not a static collection of facts, but a dynamic and ongoing conversation, a continuous process of discovery and reinterpretation. Her indelible mark on the annals of history and the collective imagination ensures that she will remain a subject of fascination, a queen whose legend continues to reign supreme, forever captivating the human spirit with her unparalleled story of power, passion, and enduring defiance. The echoes of her life resonate in every contemporary discussion about female leadership, geopolitical strategy, and the subjective nature of historical truth, proving that her influence is not confined to the past but actively shapes our present discourse and future imaginings. The intricate tapestry of her life, interwoven with threads of ambition, love, and tragedy, continues to unravel before new generations, each finding their own meaning and resonance within her extraordinary narrative.